All right, killers, in episode 4, we're going to cover chapter 11. A lot of meat in that chapter. Fitz is going to start out by sinking to new lows of perversion with his opening. We flesh out sympathy and talk about the hilarious pranks that our Canum students should really be using it for. Then we get real heavy into theories based on a couple of poems from the books. What is the Lackless door? Where is it? How do you open it? You're going to learn the truth about Kavoth's mom. More on Ajax, Lanre, and Lyra, and Fitz's obsession with chastity belts. Then we're going to finish strong by using Fitz's latest theory to come up with the worst movie endings ever. Pretty great. Enjoy it.
Once again, welcome back, killers, to the absolute most killer broadcast, King Killer Podcast. Now, this being our 4th episode, I thought the listeners might want to get to know we three a little more personally, so I will oblige. First, we have Dan, the double-donging deist, and then there's Tim, the bukkake Buddhist, and myself, I am Fitz, the missionary position Christian. Now, are you guys still practicing?
Am I practicing double dong deist?
Yeah, you were the double dong. There was just like, what you guys put on your form, on your questionnaire about how I asked what religion you are and your one of your favorite things.
I don't remember. I do not remember saying I was a double dong deist, but
It's been a while.
Right.
And plus, we came back to this episode, so really, it's been quite a while.
And bukkake. What is a bukkake?
Yeah, Tim, what is that? I just saw it on your questionnaire. What's that?
Gross. It sounds like one of those, one of those places you go, you take a date, and they cook the food in front of you, and they kind of throw it in your mouth. It's one of those things, like a Yoshinoya or what are the other ones? I don't know what the name is.
They throw rice in your face.
Yeah, it's just like rice in your face.
Instead of shrimp in your mouth, they just take white rice and throw it in your face.
Well, it has to be white. Yeah, that's very important. And it's actually most important that it doesn't actually make it in the face. You just want people to see it hit everywhere around your mouth.
Yeah,
that's very important.
We just lost everybody. No one's listening to this episode. They've all turned it off. They're like, "What? Where is this? I don't know where this is going." But I can't stick in for this.
Whatever you do, don't Google it.
Yeah,
don't Google it.
Yeah, not at work.
Don't. Yeah, gross.
And one of the things we want to mention too before we get rolling is this is our 4th episode, but it's a redo. The original 4th episode, Tim and Fitz really laid an egg. Just awful performances. Did not bring their A game. Really, really awful. Really awful. Couldn't do it. So we had to go back and redo it. So we've already done a bunch of more episodes past episode 4, but when we went back and listened to it, it wasn't holding up to the quality of the later episodes. So we were like,
it was
4 through 6. We were like, nah, those got to go. We got to redo those. And so we'll make sure we bring a higher quality. My audio, we tried a different recording method. We were using Zoom, and it was with the internet connection, didn't matter what I did, the audio was just crackling and skipping out and dropping. So yeah, it just didn't work. So, we're redoing it. So, we might run into situations where we bring up jokes that we bring up in later episodes that we reference, and it's hard to keep up with where we said things. So some of the things might sound out of place as you go through for future episodes, but that's because we're redoing it.
We figured since it is a podcast, the audio was kind of important. So the fact that the audio wasn't so good, thought maybe trying to fix that problem made sense.
Yeah.
Just for the record, I was stellar on the original episode.
No, my audio
Dan's
was bad,
audio
but
was so
my
bad.
content was amazing. Their audio was fine. Their content was horrible.
What we're trying to say is you're welcome. You're welcome, everyone.
You are very welcome. And enjoy all the build-up that was...
to lay an egg of an episode.
All right, well, let's start with Chapter 11. It is titled The Binding of Iron. In this chapter, Abinthy and Kvothe are sitting in his carriage. Ben is teaching Kvothe a boring lesson of some redundance, but to Kvothe's delight moves on to Sympathy 101. Abinthy displays the similarities between two drabs and the influence they can have on each other with the help of Alar and the proper binding. Kvothe spends the day practicing on all types of dissimilar objects and explains the reasons for energy loss. Kvothe goes on to learn many other bindings. Sometime later, Kvothe's mom hears Kvothe reciting a children's song, seemingly sexual in nature, and lectures him about it. Kvothe continues to learn and perform and do his chores, and he states that this is the happiest time of his life. Double Dong and Dan?
Yeah. So I like the beginning of this chapter because we talked about in episode 3. We finished off with talking about the Alar, the Heart of Stone, the way you split your mind, and so in this chapter he layers it on a little bit more. He does a really good job with sympathy and layering it in. You learn more and more about it in drips and drabs, and you kind of pick it up so that as you get further along in the story, it starts making more and more sense. And he doesn't just drop it all on you at once. He drops it on you a piece at a time. Does a really good job of doing it in a way where it all makes sense.
Speaking of that drip, Dan, one thing I didn't pick up on quite as well until the second time we came through is the Heart of Stone. And now the second time coming through, it seems like every time Kvothe needs to use his Alar or any kind of serious thing happens, Kvothe immediately goes into that Heart of Stone.
Yeah, it's extremely useful. I mean, when you think about it just in terms of when you're able to just put your emotions aside, you're just able to kind of flip a switch in your mind and drop emotions, even when you're in a high, intense emotional state, like you're in a state where you're extremely panicked or feeling a lot of what's the word? Anxiety, yeah. I don't run into a lot of anxiety, but I know like when I feel it, I fucking hate that. I hate it. So, but it's not something I normally feel, and his ability to just be able to just like flip that switch and turn it off would be extremely useful for a lot of people.
I mean, especially with the type of things that he uses it for. I mean, to be able to move to 100% focus on anything, it's a massive advantage. And the things that he uses it for is extraordinarily important to be 100% focused. So he definitely gets a lot of utility out of it. It comes up all the time.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a huge tool in his toolbox. And then, I like though that how it begins. He's getting frustrated with the lesson. So like we're talking about, like he gets them in drips and drabs. In his mind, he's frustrated by that, which is kind of interesting. It's helpful for us, obviously, to get it slowly but surely so that we understand what we're learning. But for him, it's frustrating. And
well, it also speaks to how quickly he picks things up, because he already feels like he knows virtually everything. And we start to find over time, he does pick up everything. So one time through, he knows it. And he legit knows it. And I think Abinthy, clearly, one thing that we get from this chapter as well is how thorough a teacher Abinthy is, and how he seems to actually take pride, or he's teaching in a way that he can take pride in what he's able to bestow upon Kvothe. So he's being very careful and measured with how he's teaching him. And it's a very thorough education. It's well-rounded. Every time they talk about anything, he can make Kvothe go into every single part of that subject and all the tangent points that can come off of it. It's cool to get that picture of their relationship and how they're...
Yeah, and another thing that I was thinking about in relationship to that relationship, I did read ahead to the next chapter as we came back to this one. So one thing in the next chapter is Kavoth Abinthy going and talking to Kavoth's mom and dad, and he touches on it in this chapter as well, just how not only quickly he picks up on things, but Kavoth finding out on his own that the pine tar or the pine sap that bound the drabs to get the pitch that bound that he figured out that it wasn't necessarily needed, and so Abinthy realizes that or is surprised that Kavoth found that out on his own, and you get the sense, or at least I guess I speculate what you said, Tim. It must be kind of a badge of honor to train someone who's going to be that next level type of savant.
Well, I mean, and one thing we get a piece of is like there can be people, not necessarily as able as him, but there's been plenty of people who pass through the world that are very able and can do a lot of these things, but they're not taught at all. So it's a perfect meeting of two minds here, where he's extraordinarily capable and he happens to be learning what he is. It does seem like, over time we realize he could do anything. Like virtually anything that he focuses on, he's gonna murder it. He's just gonna kill it. He's gonna be the best at that thing. And because he's so capable, give him the biggest challenges. Have a Loden try to teach him what he can do. You know what I mean? So like, it's so great. I mean, I would imagine for Abinthy, it's just got to be quite thrilling to consider what his future is going to be like.
And it's why I'm pretty disappointed that he left, scurried off as quick as he did.
Yeah, but the other aspect of their kind of interactions, not just that Kavoth is able to pick up on the information, what the pitch, the pine tar pitch, what that shows you is that Kavoth is able to go to a different level, to figure things out on his own. He doesn't need Abinthy's direction all the time. It's not like he's just memorizing things. You hand him a book and he's just got a photographic memory. Mm-hmm. He just remembers everything. He's able to understand things at a deeper level than that, and he's able to figure things out on his own. He realizes, without anybody telling him anything, that this part of the process is totally unnecessary, and that is not something that a lot of people are going to do. Like if you tell someone, here's the recipe to make cake, and then one of these steps in that recipe is completely unnecessary for the finished product, most people are not going to pick that up. They're just going to go through the recipe, do what they got to do, and they're not going to pick up on one of these things is completely irrelevant, and it's just a mental. It's only in there to kind of set your mind in the right process, so that it helps your focus and your concentration and your belief that this will work.
Well, it's further impressive because of how young he is, how inexperienced he is, and the fact that he's doing that problem solving on his own. It speaks to his ingenuity, and just he's on another level.
Yeah. And it's a brilliant mind. And then Abinthy also, it's not like he's just completely benefiting from having an exceptional student. He's also an exceptional teacher. Like all these lessons he gives Kavoth's going to go 3 years without any of these lessons. And then when he goes to the university, it's going to be like the teaching never stopped. He's not going to, he's going to retain all of it. Obviously, that is a credit to Kavoth that he retains all that information for 3 years. That's that's just not normal.
His
but
ability,
also it's a credit to how well he taught him that he was, the things he was able to do. It's a credit to Abinthy and how thorough his tutelage was.
Yeah, dude, and especially like Hem's class, we see real quick, like not only did he get the correct base learning, it was so thorough that he's able to explain it in a way that's, superb. He could have been a superb teacher on his own, just based off of his own experience and how he's able to then cultivate that into how he would communicate it. It's tremendous. I love this chapter in the sense of their back and forth. It's a great balance between what you need for like a very good education between two people, because there's a seriousness, but they both seem to enjoy each other's company. So
there's some friendliness there.
There's a mutual respect. There's a curiosity on both parts, because he kind of like, he'll, to some of Kavoth's answers, he'll prod him and tease him, but then also be like, oh, he'll kind of, I remember the one with the bird, the lathering between his feathers, and Aventhy was like, wow, I never really thought of that. It's like there's a curiosity between both, so it's that enjoyment. There's a mutual respect. There's a teasing that, they obviously enjoy each other's company, so they don't have to force anything. Although we see, Kavoth he's brash, and he's not willing to hold back how bored he is, how much he already understands it. It's a great combo, man. It works perfectly.
Yeah, you get a couple little nuggets of information in there. He does a real good job. He starts to introduce you to a little bit of the story, and then he'll just throw out a couple nuggets of world building information. So he'll give you I had asked him what a leer meant once. He claimed it meant wise one, but I had my doubts from the way his mouth had quirked when he said it. So you get your first mention of a leer, which, as you read on, you learn a leer means seer. And then the next step in a leer is obviously the first, after you get into the university, your first real introduction into the, basically after your trial period, when you get admitted to the university beyond just starting your education there, is a leer, which means seer. Then the next step is relar, which means speaker. And then the third step is alpha, which we don't know the meaning of. I would assume it means namer, shaper, something along those lines, but we don't know. And then obviously the next step is becoming an arcanist. So you get your first mention of it here. So he starts to kind of layer in that information, but then you also get through Abethy trying to teach Kavoth a lesson about interrupting him while he's trying to teach him things, and about mocking his, oh, this is boring, I don't want to learn this. He has him teach him about the history of the money, which is funny. Their interaction is funny, so it's enjoyable. But in that, you also learn, their history of money is obviously very similar to ours, where it starts with barter, and then through a evolution process with the money, the item that is the most barterable. What is the word? Barterable, not barterable. Best barter instrument. Yeah, the best barter instrument eventually becomes money, and so it eventually sounds like gold and silver and copper.
Barterability, maybe barterability.
Yeah, I would turn that into barter.
If you allow it,
yeah.
I'm gonna allow it. I'm gonna say barterable. That works for me.
I guess that'll be
you're
okay.
welcome. It's great. I love how he puts Kavoth in the seat. Right, he switches. What do you call that? He, spins the table on him, and basically, has him teach him, and then acts like a fucking annoying student that doesn't want to listen.
Yeah. So Kavoth immediately I decided to not act that way anymore.
I kind of got the picture there. That
he's so good at doing world building information, and doing it in a way where it's funny. It's interesting it's interesting to read. It's entertaining. So he doesn't drop all this information on you where you feel like you're getting a lecture and you're just having to get through it. It's really, he does it in an entertaining way.
It's always 2-3 birds with one stone, man. So he always layers on the relationship we're learning more about. Kavoth is learning, Aventhy's learning more about him, and then there's also, what would be the info dump, what would be, the world building, and it all accomplishes together, and because of all that layering, it just makes it more interesting and more enjoyable for the reader. And it's perfect to do that on stuff that could come across as dry if you tried to deliver it just straight, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And I like the information that you get in this chapter on sympathy. Is it takes you from just the basics of, you learn what a lar is, you learn how to, what it means to split your mind into different pieces, and you learn what the heart of stone is. Then he starts teaching you actual sympathy and actual magic, and how these things are utilized to create magic. And you got like the law of sympathy is one of the most basic parts of magic. It states that the more similar two objects are, the greater the sympathetic link. The greater the link, the more easily they influence each other. And so if the more similar two things are, the easier it is to link them together. The more dissimilar they are, the harder it is to link them together, which is like your first little piece of information on how this magic works.
Well, a couple things that in the way that he does it that I like a lot. I like that Kvothe is disappointed when he gets it to work.
Yeah.
Right? So because you read that, it's not enjoyable to read that, but to look back and have him be disappointed, it makes it more real. Right? It makes it less magical. It's totally magical. I mean, it's 100% magic. But the fact that it doesn't feel like he's doing something otherworldly or something magical makes it so much more tangible and believable for the reader, which is great.
Yeah, well,
I was just gonna
go ahead, Tim. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna go towards what Dan was talking about. I guess I don't know if they're analogies, but I would call them analogies that he uses for the strength of the bindings tremendous. I mean, it's based in how we understand things, of like an aqueduct with leaks, that where it's feeding to a water wheel, yet there's a bunch of leaks along the way. It's going to be less strong. Or, when he's trying to combine things that are dissimilar, it just doesn't work nearly as well. The best example, break a twig in half. And that's going to work tremendously. And it's two pieces of the same thing. And he does that as well with the barter tools. So we picture two bars that would be a larger bar. They break apart. It's just very effective. It's very easy for the mind to pick up, to see the sensibility in it. And it's such a genius way to map out this reality, this conjured reality of how magic could work.
Well, I really liked it because makes it seem true to life, even though there is that extra step. But the fact it comes close to physics in that the energy can't be created or destroyed, and there is an energy loss because it reminds me of electricity. If when you have imperfect metals and stuff that's not that great of a
conductor,
it takes away from the heat, from the energy, and you end up causing heat in your wires, and at the end product is you lose some of that energy. But it's just kind of true to life. It's it makes it more interesting, and you can imagine once if you can get a good handle on to some extent in our world, electricity seems like magic. You spin a magnet around, and all of a sudden you create these fields of magnetism on something else, and down the line you get electricity. And from that you get heat, you get light. It's almost the exact same thing without the. Go ahead, Dan.
No, I 100% agree. I was to just jump off of that. I was just thinking about what we're doing right now. I have nothing plugged into anything, and I'm able to see you and talk to you, and you can hear me even though we're across the country. I can say a word and you can hear that word and you can see me say it even though we're thousands of miles apart. Like, that shit is magic to me.
Exactly.
Like, it makes no sense whatsoever, like how that's possible, that I have just this little device that I just turn on and then I can speak into it and you guys can see and hear me all the way across the country, and there's no there's no delay or anything like that. You can hear it immediately. It's fucking crazy to me.
And to Kvothe's credit, or I guess to feel what Kvothe is saying, knowing how audio waves translate into electrical pulses and how Wi-Fi works and knowing how electricity and internet works, and it makes it a lot less magical, doesn't it? And it's not that interesting anymore.
Well, what I think is so impressive about what Rothfuss does is he's choosing to create magic in this world, and he's able to do it in a way that's tangible. The smartest thing he does, as far as I'm concerned, is he makes it completely tangible and interesting and something that you can grasp. So to be able to do it in that way, now we're all in. I mean, we're not even 100 pages in, and we buy it, we see it, we can see it as a reality, and we can grasp it. It's still impressive. And it's just the beginning, because when we wrap our minds around what he's able to do, then it's what else can he do? What can other people do? What will this be? What will this end up being? And it's like the advent of the internet.
Yeah.
What are we eventually going to do?
That's like we can, even if we don't understand that how this technology works, that what we're doing, how it's possible, we can wrap our heads around it once we're doing it. The step where this becomes hard to wrap your head around is you say a magic word, the sympathetic binding. You just say a magic word to connect these two things. So like all the like connections, and you're connecting two pieces of stick. It's it's similar to like Wi-Fi and that kind of stuff. But then they're where the way they make it work is you concentrate really hard. You have the strong willpower. Then you say a magic word. And then when you go and pick up one stick, it picks up both sticks. And then you learn the aspect of it that makes sense to us is that if you pick up one stick and the other stick lifts, you're actually picking up both sticks. So it's not like you can just pick up one stick and that can lift a boulder. You have to be able to physically be able to pick these things up for this magic to work. So they're like those aspects all make sense, but then they tie it all together with you have to just speak this magic word. And that magic word is the magical aspect of it that just is not natural to our world. It's not something like electricity or anything like that.
Well, if you've ever read novels that have telekinesis, I haven't experienced, or at least I can't picture in my mind now or recall a telekinetic situation that was like this, where I can actually picture the steps of the process leading into what they're eventually able to do. This is very much like telekinesis. It's very similar to it, yet it's just faith. Like when I read Carrie, it's just faith. You know what I mean? You just know that she can do it. It's all about emotion. It's very just like the way he wrote it. And I'm going back to like 8th grade when I read that, but I'm trying to, what I picture, it was just very much, it was written on emotion itself. And it was all that pent up emotion that became something that then could be used. It was almost like when, he calls the name of the wind. It's when that superheated emotion combines with that capability. I don't know. That's kind of what I picture now that I can make those two connections in retrospect, but I don't remember being sold it in the same way.
When Kavoth gets out of control and uses it, I can see what you're saying as far as the emotion goes, but usually when he uses the sympathy and the Heart of Stone and he's in it, he is 100% focused and no emotion. But you're right, because there are those few instances like when Chronicler mentions Dinah in the first scene in the Chronicler in the bar. Yeah, and well, you assume that.
But that's not sympathy. That's more like naming. But yeah, like I get what you're saying. But like the naming, it seems like in order to do naming at the ability that he's able to do it, he needs Heart of Stone is extremely important, and taking the emotion out of it seems to be extremely important as far as being able to do it well.
Well, like with Felurian and with the tree that cuts. Those two.
I know what you're saying. Yeah,
that Adem tree. Those two instances. I mean, it's written so well. You feel like everything. I feel like I'm in that space and everything slows down around me. It's almost like you can feel the matter in the air. It feels like Neo in the Matrix when in those two couple scenes where everything slows down, Kavoth has full control and he can see the name of the wind in front of him. He can sort of like pull the instances. I almost felt like LSD trip or something.
Well, I was going to say,
which is pretty impressive writing, shit, man.
Have
you
guys
conjure all those
ever,
feelings.
Have you guys ever been in one of those car wrecks or traumatic situations where, not literally, but I think it's because of your focus. If you're in harm's way, where it seems that things slow down, and what maybe took 2 minutes seems like it took 10 or 15, and literally, as you go through that and as you remember that, I don't know. I've got a couple of instances where I was in situations like that, and it's like the extreme focus, just extreme focus, and it's not something I didn't go into the heart of stone. It's something that came naturally. My body put me in a slowed down mode.
Yeah, cliff diving. I remember having an experience like that, and also a car accident. I know what you mean.
That
rush of endorphins is a huge part of
it. One of our other buddies was driving, and with Tim, and when he made a turn going way too fast, it was like, well, this isn't going to end well. Like I remember thinking, like, well, here comes a wreck.
It's
like,
funny
because he turned so fast, and it was like, there's no way he's making this turn. And we go straight into a pole, and the car flips over on its side. But it didn't seem like it took like 10 minutes or anything. Like time didn't slow down that moment. But it takes you a split second to think like, uh-oh.
The funny thing is,
but it did feel slower.
The second it happened, I could tell by the way you reacted orally, what you said. The same moment in my mind, I was like, we're fucked. The same moment you said what you said, I don't remember exactly what you were like, shit, or something like that. The moment you said it, the way you said it, was like you and I both knew it's over. And I think the driver still thought he could somehow get out of this. But
I did not expect him to turn. I didn't realize we were going so fast, going straight. I had no idea he was going to try to make a right turn.
He could. Yeah. There was
going
impossible.
like fucking 50 miles an hour, and then just tries to make a right turn. It was like, whoa, what are you doing?
Yeah, it was impossible. So we flipped.
Yeah, and then it's it's just weird, it's disorienting. Where like I didn't get hurt or anything, but like the car's flipped on its side, and it takes you a second to orient yourself. Like, okay, the door is above me.
Yeah.
So like I see Tim, I look over at Tim, and he's trying to. We were both on the passenger side. The passenger side was on the ground. And so Tim is trying to open the door on the passenger side, but he's trying to push through the ground. And I was like, Tim, gotta climb up.
I thought that was the opposite.
You're not getting out that way, man. We're on our side.
I thought it was the opposite. I thought, it was everything
obviously
very
you thought that.
It was very confusing. Yeah. I fucked my wrist up. I fucked my wrist up.
We had to climb out like the driver's side. And so
I remember
you
I
were
had to
trying
climb
to open your door, but your door is pinned against the ground. And we'd been drinking and everything, and it was just like a split second where it was like you're just completely disoriented, like he's trying to open the door to the ground, and it was like, hey, up here, you got to climb up through the other door. Yeah, it was pretty wild, but yeah, I mean, time does slow down in those moments.
That massive rush of endorphins and everything, just fucking huge trip in your mind. All those chemicals rush.
Well, I think
I came through like a champ in that story too. Just to finish off that story is when the cops showed up, we'd been drinking, and so they're asking me questions, and they're like, so were you guys drinking? And I was like, man, we were just hanging out, like had some friends over we went to school with, and we're just having a good time. We just spent a few hours together, and then he'd ask me again, like, so, but were you guys drinking? And then I would just talk about other things we did.
What? No,
and I just kept refusing to answer the specific question he was asking.
There was either a blood moon or like you could see Jupiter or something like that. Something just had happened, and we kept bringing it up.
I went into sales mode. I went into just like full on sales mode and just tried to turn the conversation in whatever direction I wanted it to go. And he just eventually got flustered and stopped asking me questions.
Well, it was interesting. It was the first time in my life I had been confronted with police, and they actually treated me with any respect. I think they might have actually been, for the first time in my life, either my age or a little bit younger than me. That never happened to me before. I always got screwed by the cops. But there was something about the sky that we kept bringing up. Something had just happened that was like a solar system sort of thing, and it was still current enough that we kept bringing that up, and then they would get like interested in our conversation.
Yeah,
it was great. It was quite genius.
Man, I was always really good at sales, and I sold the shit out of them on not talking about what they wanted to talk about and talking about what I wanted to talk about. But going back to the chapter, the part that I think illuminates sympathy really well is when he's talking about like how picking up the 2 sticks, it felt like picking up both of them, but you lose a little bit of transfer of energy, so it's a little bit heavier. And then he talked about like combining chalk to a glass of milk or something. And he's like, the glass of milk weighs 2 pounds, but when I tried to pick up the piece of chalk, it was like trying to pick up, it was like it weighed 60 pounds. And so you get that, you start to learn that how important it is for these things to be similar and how limited the magic is. It shows you that it's not just like, I can pick up this stick and it lifts up a fucking 100-pound boulder. It's like, no, it's not going to work that way. There are some major limitations.
Yeah, there's rules.
He goes on to talk about briefly goes by the different dissimilar objects he uses. And I think he says that he compares the donkey and the dirt. I wonder how that went, trying to pick up the donkey with a dirt clod.
Did he?
Yeah, a clod of earth. And I were grabbing a silver talent, a stone, and a piece of fruit, 2 bricks, a clod of earth, and one of the donkeys.
Oh,
and it took him about 2 hours to figure out that the pine pitch wasn't necessary. Yeah, one thing that really struck out at me this time around is he talks about, Ben continued giving me a smattering of lessons in other areas, history, arithmetic, chemistry, but I grabbed at whatever he could teach me about sympathy. He doled out his secrets sparingly, making me prove I'd mastered one before giving me another, but I seemed to have a knack for it above and beyond my natural penchant for absorbing knowledge. So there's never too long a wait. That to me seems to speak to, especially seems to be his calling. You know what I mean? He has a natural knack beyond even his other things that he's capable at. Obviously, he has an interest, but that to me speaks to like this is what he's meant to do. This is a natural. If it's fateful, we play with that in this book quite a bit, where there is some sort of faithfulness. It seems suggested that pulls Kavoth in a specific direction, and this, if that is the case, I think this speaks to that. At least
and it's one of those. I think it's probably one of those nudges that Rothfuss gives, where again, I'll say he's talking about something that I can't quite grasp yet, but he's bringing it up again, where Kavoth is alluding to the fact that there's something more than just his natural ability. There's some kind of heroism. I don't know, some kind of godliness, whatever it may be.
And one thing I'm surprised he hasn't put in the books now, just kind of thinking about like what you could do with the fact that like, that chalk, it felt like lifting 60 pounds. Like you could take someone's pants and do a sympathetic link to a horse and fucking pants people just walking down the street. Because their pants would feel like the weight of a horse, except for even more. So their pants would just fly down and just pants people left and right. Like you could do some funny pranks.
That would happen a
lot at the university.
You wouldn't have to smash the horse to do it?
No, you just combine those two things, and then like to be able to pick your pants back up, it would be like having to lift the horse, except for more. And so your pants would just drop down immediately, and then you wouldn't be able to lift them back up. There's no way you'd have the strength to. So you just have to either break the link or just have to run off, holding your junk.
You wouldn't be able to run off. Your pants would still be heavy as a horse. You just have to stand there.
They would fall down. You'd have to step out of them. You
would. You'd have to run home naked.
Yeah. Yeah, I could come up with some hilarious pranks. Like Rothfuss needs to talk to me. I can come up with some hilarious pranks for fucking old Kavoth to do to Ambrose moving on in these stories.
I think they just needed a few more, daring students to really bring in the jokes, because one guy gets pantsed, the next guy's going to get pantsed. You ever bag tag a friend, that's going to pass along for a while. I think they just needed a few more that were willing to get on the horns for conduct unbecoming. And then it just becomes, it just becomes a running theme that they all just keep getting on the horns for it.
World would get super dangerous. Like, you imagine someone's like swimming in a lake that you don't like, that you wanted to murder. Like you do a sympathetic link between their shorts and a tree and just sink them to the bottom of the lake immediately. Like, it could get very dangerous. Like I would like to have a conversation to Rothfuss on how you would defend yourself from the potential of someone making a sympathetic link that is not a very good link, but would be disastrous for you because of that.
What about oppositely, Dan? If you could link an actual person to, like, say, a feather or a balloon or something, and just watch them float away.
I don't know I don't think it would work that way, because I
it'd
think
work.
It'd work.
You don't understand the ins and outs of this stuff.
I think it's more like you need a propulsion, something to move it rather than, I don't think you can decrease weight like that.
No, I don't think you could make something
not in
fly.
this world.
It seems like it's adding weight.
I'm trying to apply what we're learning here. And I don't think it works like that.
That's more naming. That's more naming than sympathy. But
so one thing one thing I did think about when Kavoth learned he didn't need the pine tar, I thought of George Brett. I don't know about you guys, but he never needed that. He never needed that pine tar. He didn't need it.
I didn't think of it until you just said it.
But if it wasn't for that pine tar, it was such a classic. That's one of the best angry moments that I remember seeing somebody go through. It's fantastic.
Of the millions of people who listen to our podcast,
Seven.
There's three. There's 3 people that know who George Brett is.
Okay,
for the pine tar incident.
Then let me suggest something. Instead of Googling George Brett pine tar, YouTube George Brett poops his pants. It's fantastic. You will thank me later. It's one of the best stories I've ever heard.
That's a story, right? Yeah,
that's
good. A story.
It's just him telling a story, but oh man, it's so good. It's such a classic story, man.
Yeah, that's an amazing George Brett story. Baseball's the best for that.
I'm sure we got fans
in sports. Like, there's, as far as sports are concerned, baseball has by far the best stories.
Yes,
you know what? All those old baseball stories I enjoy now. Like, you guys know me as not a baseball fan. Well, it's because I was a Darryl Strawberry fan when I was a kid, and one thing after another.
Didn't last too long.
He'd hit it lasted. It lasted like 12 years. He'd hit a grand slam to win the World Series, and then beat the hell out of his wife or do some more crack. Then he'd come back and hit another 40 home runs, and then it was such an up and down roller coaster for me that it made me hate baseball to this day.
Made for a very entertaining 30 for 30. Him and Doc Gooden. That's a good one. Another one. We're just recommending all this ESPN stuff for people.
Yeah, guys, put pause and go check this stuff out. Come back to us later. Go into the professionals.
But I didn't have anything left as far as like the sympathy. Obviously, the next part we're getting into is the meat and potatoes of the chapter. This is the big theory that I was talking about before. But before we jump into that, did you guys have any last points you wanted to make on the beginning part of this chapter?
No, but it's. I'll just reiterate that it's a great foundation based in real world or our world science to some extent that leads to so much better understanding and believability of the magic in Rothfuss's world, Kavoth's world.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. The other accomplishment that I liked so much is really just their relationship, their back and forth, the foundation of being able to believe. I mean, we have to believe a lot of this, right? We have to believe he's capable when he goes to university. Now, we believe in his abilities, but yeah, he goes to Tarbine, he's not doing any of this stuff. But Abinthy's such a good teacher. Their communication works so well. He picks up things so quickly. It does also help what he says to Kavoth's parents. That's a big sell for us as well.
There's a combination because he writes these chapters so well, and the explanations and your thoughts of Kavoth as a student is built up. Where you think highly of him as a student because of these chapters and his interactions with Abinthy, and then his time in Tarbean is 3 years, but it doesn't feel that long when you're actually reading it. Like he goes into Tarbean, he's only there for like 4 or 5 chapters or whatever, and then he's moving on to the university after that, and so there's not a huge drag between when Abinthy leaves to when he gets to the university, so that you don't even think about it. Like I don't, like the first time I went through it, I'm not thinking like, holy shit, it's been 3 years since he learned this shit, and now he's doing this to him the first time he's using this stuff again.
Again,
it doesn't even occur to me to think about it.
Rothfuss has a real knack for every time we get into these transitions to another part of his existence. We're never there so long that we get like used to being there. You know what I mean? It's like as soon as we're like, this is the world he's in, then boom, we go somewhere else. Which is great because it always keeps it going. It always keeps it moving, And every time it does feel like he's getting comfortable, then things fall out from under him. Or he's got another new challenge he's got to deal with. We spend some time at the university. As soon as we do get like if I remember right, where it does feel like we're actually acclimated, then boom, he's off to fight the Dracus, right? Or he's off to something else. There's always this underlying tension throughout, which is, again, that's massive. That's so important. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I remember being explained those things to me later, where it's like, oh, so he was there that long. Okay.
Well, it's like
I have to kind of be sold that.
To concur with you, Tim. It's like there's an up and a down where it's a turmoil versus excitement. It's not so much all the time, like, oh, this is Kavoth's really doing good, but it's balanced. It's the like turmoil is balanced between the excitement.
It's like a relenting of some of his problems. That happens a lot, right? The problems get relented, but then they come back, right? So it's like when he's progressing, it's a difficulty that he was able to overcome, and maybe this will be overcome for a while. You know what I mean? And then we get reminded again, like he loses his shoes or something, or another shirt. So he's going through shirts like crazy.
The next part I wanted to dive into is the poem. This is what I talked about, like when I said there's a big aspect of this chapter that plays into what we're trying to solve in book 3. This is something like people who have really dove into these books. This is one of the aspects that we picked apart a lot and tried to analyze and tried to figure out through this poem we hear Kavoth tell that his mom gets mad about. So kind of, before go into the poem, just kind of to give you, a reminder of who the big players are that play into the poem, is one of the big characters people focus in on that tie into this poem is Ajax. And Ajax is the guy that Hespa, she tells a story about Jax, who makes a deal with a tinker and ends up getting all of his packs, and then he ends up going and stealing the moon. And Florian talks about how in the Creation War, which is a story Scarpy tells about the battle between the Namers and the Shapers, Florian talks about how there was a chance for peace before Ajax stole the moon. So Ajax is going to be a central figure, and that's, just give you a recap on who he is. The other big figures, we'll talk about Lanre and Lyra and kind of how they play into this. And Lanre and Lyra is obviously Lanre's, who becomes Haliax. Lyra's Lanre's woman. And then the huge revelation we get is Natalia Lackless plays into these poems. And so Natalia Lackless, this is one of the aspects we lose by redoing this. Like the first time we go through this, Fitz had no idea who Natalia Lackless was. And, you know, there's of our listeners, the millions of them, probably half of them, we get like 30 million downloads an episode. So of the millions and millions of listeners, I probably like half of them,
it's like 15 million,
know who Natalia Lackless is, and then the other half are going to have no clue. This is going to be a revelation to them. But Natalia Lackless.
So can I give the clue, Dan, of what it is in this chapter that you asked me about originally? What the clue is that may have sparked anyone's mind?
Go ahead.
So if you were listening, there's a mention about Kvothe's mom possibly being of royal lineage or of some nobility. So if you picked up on that at all, that's kind of the jump off. Am I right?
Yeah, that was from last episode. It was the say perhaps that my mother was a noble before she was a trooper. She told me my father had lured her away from a miserable, dreary hell with sweet music and sweeter words. I could only assume she meant 3 Crossings, where we went to visit relatives when I was young once. So here's the big revelation is Natalia Lackless is Kvothe's mother. And so there's a few different clues that lay this out. Like that was the first one, that she's a noble and that Kvothe's father, as with the troops, stole her away from her noble family. But some of the other clues is she had ran away. Natalia Lackless had also, as stated in The Wise Man's Fears, is stated to have ran away with a band of troopers. And then when Kvothe meets Maelwyn Lackless, Natalia Lackless' sister, he recognizes her. He thinks that he's seen her before. He can't place it, but he keeps looking at her and like, man, she looks so familiar. I can't place it.
Well,
reason he can't place it, it's because she looks like his mother, and he's not putting 2 and 2 together that this is his mom's sister.
The biggest thing that cinched it for me when I first heard the theory is Maelwyn. Man, does she have disdain for the Rue? It is vehement. It is on another level as to hatred of a group of people. It's supreme racism.
Did she mention that she knows it's the Rue, or is it troopers in general?
It's the Rue in general is who she hates. Okay. She despises the Rue with a passion.
Yeah,
she has a massive hatred of the Rue.
It's jarring. It's jarring when you read it. Like the way she, like how bad and vitriol the hatred is. It's just like, man, she, like, you do not want to go against this woman. She has a lot of hatred in her heart.
When I read it the first time, like, I had no idea about all this stuff, but really it just reminded me of like someone who's really racist. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, that's basically what it is. Yeah. The Rue is a race. Well,
and she can't see beyond it. It's blind hatred. It's so well, and it's so real. It's so intense for her that she just can't see beyond it whatsoever.
Yeah, irrational.
So it's like that blinding, irrational, blinding, emotional hatred. It's intense.
So the two other big clues is when he's telling this poem about Lady Lackless, his mother stops him, and she gets upset about him saying this poem. And after she chastises him over it, she also says, she stops him and she's like, you know, you can make it up to her and Lady Lackless if he does some chores. So he's saying you can make it up to me and Lady Lackless if you go and, you know, fetch me whatever, it's, you know, dead nettle or whatever it was that she asked him to fetch.
Sweet
but nettle. the sweet nettle, okay. But the biggest clue, the one that cinches it, where it's like it's not a guess. It's 100. It's as close to 100% as you could get. It's in the second book. He is talking to Will and Sim, and he's telling him about his mom and dad, and how one time his dad recited a poem or a song that ended up getting his mom really mad at him, where she made him sleep under the wagon. And so in that poem, it was, Dark Lorien, Arladin's wife, has a face like the blade of a knife, has a voice like a prickle brown burr, but can tally a sum like a moneylender. My sweet Tally cannot cook. My sweet Tally, Natalia, my sweet Tally cannot cook, but she keeps a tidy ledger book. For all her faults, I do confess it's worth my life to make my wife not Tally a lot less. And again, not Tally, Natalia, not Tally a lot less. Lackless, lot less, Lackless. So that is what cinches it, is he's like, my sweet Tally and not Tally a lot less is a play on words for Natalia Lackless. And that is why the poem infuriated his mom, is because he's revealing the secret about that, who she actually is. She's not Lorien, Arladin's wife. She's Natalia Lackless. She is a noble of an extremely noble family, one of the most noble families in this world. And he's revealing that secret, but he's being coy about it and being cute. And she did not find it cute. She was pissed about it. She made him sleep under a wagon for just even being coy about this secret.
It's just in passing, real quick, Dan. Sorry, Tim. Do you think, Dan or Tim, that possibly her being Natalia Lackless has anything to do with them being killed, or is it just because of the song? Obviously, it's speculation at this point.
I don't know. Like, I not off the top of my head. It's possible, but I can't. No, I don't think it was that, because, Kvothe is 12 years old when she gets killed. So she's obviously, she's been around and, in this group for a long time. If they were going to kill her, why wait, however many years, so over a decade.
Well, maybe it's kind of an interesting point in the sense that, does she have to hide her identity? Is that vital?
So maybe
it seems like
maybe they are on the hunt for her, and because they're singing about, why else would Arladin? I mean, I guess because why else would Arladin want to even sing about the Chandrian? But maybe, possibly does.
Well, we know why, but
I'm just speculating that why.
Well, no, I was going to say, why does she have to be hiding? Does she have to does she have to go by a different name than Natalia? Is that vital?
Maybe she's hiding from
I mean, it seems like, why would she? It obviously is vital, otherwise she wouldn't change her name. And when you see the animosity that Maelwyn Lackless has for the Rue, it seems like she would want to be trying to, otherwise this powerful noble family might go and come after her, take her back, or kill them. So it seems like she's would be in hiding. But why would she be in hiding for the Chandrian? They talk about the Chandrian. They don't think the Chandrian are real. They think it's a story. So it's they think there's a historical basis for Lanre and Lyra and all that kind of stuff, but they don't think they think when what's Abinthy is don't say their names. They think it's silly to be that terrified of it. So no, I don't think that they were on the run from the Chandrian. I think she was hiding her name from her family.
Okay.
Because her family is a very powerful, noble family. But that poem, the not my sweet Tally cannot cook and not Tally a lot less, with all the other clues and him not being able to picture why he recognizes Maelwyn and all that kind of aspect of it, it's as close to a sure thing that his mom is Natalia Lackless, which I think is going to play a major role in book 3. So the big aspect of it, the big thing that about these chapters, especially this poem and one other poem, we'll just kind of go into why I think these poems are important and why I think Ajax and Lanre and Lyra and Natalia Lackless is so pertinent to these poems. So the poem that he reads that infuriates his mom is 7 things has Lady Lackless. keeps them underneath her black dress. One a ring that's not for wearing, one a sharp word not for swearing. Right beside her husband's candle, there's a door without a handle. In a box no litter locks, Lackless keeps her husband's rocks. There's a secret she's been keeping, he's been dreaming and not sleeping. On a road that's not for traveling, Lackless likes her riddle raveling. This poem is very similar to a poem we get in the second book. After Kvothe leaves the Fae, he leaves Felurian, Tempe and Kvothe and the group are heading back to the Mare Alvaron, and they run around on this ragtag troop that had lost their bear, and the little boy in the group says a poem to Kvothe, and the poem that he recites to Kvothe is 7 things stand before the entrance to the Lackless door. One of them a ring unworn, one a word that is forsworn, one a time that must be right, one a candle without light, one a son who brings the blood, one a door that holds the flood, one a thing tight held in keeping, then comes that which comes with sleeping. I think these 2 poems are integral into figuring out what is going to happen in Book 3. Book 3 is likely going to be titled Doors of Stone, and I think these poems are key to figuring out what the Doors of Stone are, where it is, and how to open it, and who's behind it, and why it's important. I think these 2 poems really lay that out. So, like the first thing, going back to the first poem, you have 7 things has Lady Lackless. And in the boys' poem, it's 7 things that stand before the entrance to the Lackless door. So these 7 things, I think what they are trying to tell us is the way to open the Lackless door. I think that's the hidden meaning in this poem, is how to open the Lackless door, which I believe is the Doors of Stone.
Or maybe like a chastity belt that Lady Lackless is wearing, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, it's 100% that. It is not the doors, it's 100% a chastity belt.
Yeah, that's a good payoff, right?
Yeah, except for,
could be.
She's not around.
Potentially.
It's already happened. But so you have, the 7 things I think are what we'll try to figure out is what these 7 things are to open the doors. But then the second clue is keeps them underneath her black dress. So that is, I think, a clue on the location of where the clues are or where the door is, some aspect of that. And so a lot of people have surmised that black dress is very similar to Block of Drazen Tor, the Black of Drazen Tor. Like that is where the battle is fought, where Lanre is eventually killed. He slays some monster and then he's eventually killed in that whole battle where Scarpy says more people were killed in that battle than exist in the world today. And during this battle, the location of this battle is called the Black of Drazen Tor. So black means battle, and Tor is a stone formation which often stands atop a hill or ridge. Some tors resemble archways due to erosion. So I'll go into why I think that tor is important. But I think Block of Drazen, black dress. Black Drazen, black dress. I think that's a play on words that Rothfuss is putting in there to kind of give us a clue on what this poem really entails.
Well,
if you guys understand what I'm going with.
I do, and I'll just kind of reiterate that by saying, now in the chapter itself, Kvothe's young mind perceives that poem in its entirety as being sexual in nature, and as a first time reader, you would think that as well. Not only because he says it, but because it's kind of like she keeps her husband's rocks. Yeah. There's a ring underneath her dress, but you're right. It's obviously not about that, as you have shown. And so, what's the other explanation? Because it's obviously not a sexual poem. It's something else. So, what could possibly be the explanation for the poem calling whatever this object or this secret is being underneath her black dress?
It seems like they're instructions, right?
Right.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a hidden instructions on the location of the Lackless door or the Doors of Stone. I think they're the same thing. It's where the Lackless door is, how to open the Lackless door. I think that is the hidden meaning behind these poems. Obviously there's sexual innuendo that you can read into these poems, but I think that is just kind of Rothfuss's clever way of throwing you kind of off the scent.
Well,
so I think that it's something that you have to really analyze to be able to figure out.
Well, I think those are also implemented because that makes them more memorable in this world, right? I mean, you need clever, intriguing limericks. You know what I'm saying? Like to where it's funny to somebody, so that's why they repeat it. Somebody else repeats it because they just like how it sounds. They just like it lyrically. Other people think there's more to it than that. But I mean, that makes sense. That's how you get these things to last throughout. You know, these little sayings, poems, lyrics, or limericks and whatnot.
And not to jump ahead, but as you mentioned in episode, I believe 15, Dan, if anyone is actively trying to hide information and steal books and things like that, well, you know, the only way to really keep something alive, if you know somebody's out to keep it a secret, is to, you know, do it in children's stories, do it in poems that are told mouth to mouth.
Yeah. And then, so, you know, moving into the rest of the poem is you have the next part is want a ring that's not for wearing. So I think a ring that is not for wearing, there's many different interpretations. One is it could be a literal ring that you're not supposed to wear. So an example of that is the bone ring that Maelwyn gives Kvothe when she finds out he's with the Rue.
The bone. The bone comes from Strep, or whatever his name is. The wood ring, isn't it? Trep. Wood.
Oh, okay, the wood ring.
Yeah, she burns. Okay, she burns into it, and they're all like, "Hey, dude, you're not supposed to wear this."
Yeah.
It's like it's very. It seems like she is a massive insult, huge insult.
Yeah, everybody like looks can-eye at it when like he brings it up. Everybody's just kind of looking at it like, ugh.
Yeah,
and they look at it. They can. It's everybody like they tried not to look at it, but they can't. They're drawn to it because of it. It is such a big insult, and then he just like he throws it on his finger and walks out the door, and what's Stape is like Stape. Telling him like, hey, you really shouldn't be wearing that.
Well, he gets it from Stape. He gets it from the guy he plays chess,
Brandor. Not Brandor, Braden.
Yeah. I mean, he gets it enough where like it really cements in our mind. Like, it's a massive insult. It's like basically she wiped her ass with this thing and you put it on.
Yeah.
Actually, it's worse because it's suggesting a station below that of like slaves. You know, it's like, oh man, yeah. I mean,
like dead man walking kind of thing.
Yeah. So it could be that. It could be literally a ring you're not supposed to wear, or it could be the ring. Like the sound like a bell makes when you ring it. So like an example of that is in Trappist's story that he tells about Minda and Telu hunting in Canis. When Telu ties Canis to a wheel, there's a part where it's like, but then there was a sound like quenching iron. The wheel rung like an iron bell, and Canis' body arched painfully at the sound, then hung limply from his wrists as the ringing of the wheel faded. So it could be a ring like that, like something being rung. But I think the most likely guess, the one that I think is the most likely the right answer, is it also could be the ring of Greystones that he dreams about coming up shortly. So after his family is killed and he is in the woods by himself, he goes to sleep and he dreams about like being taught from one of the Lacklesses, or Lackless. He's taught by this guy how to, you know, what food he can eat, what plants he can eat, what plants will help you numb pain, which ones are poisonous, that kind of stuff. But then at the end of that dream, he sees a circle of Greystones, and one of the Greystones, one of the parts like forms like a doorway, like there's two standing up and one going across the top like an archway. So there's that description of a circle of ring stones that I think is the most likely explanation of what the ring that's not for wearing. I think it's the one of them, a ring unworn. I think that is the door. I think the doors of stone is that circle of gray stones, like in gray stones, that's how he gets into the Fae.
Yeah,
it's like a portal
channels,
and so exactly.
And
so I think this is a portal into what they lock someone behind.
They also seem to represent large moments in his life. Very, very large moments that loom large over the story and loom large over his experience seem to happen at Greystones. They're markers throughout the story. And as I started to realize that, I started to recognize it much, much more and sort of highlight it in my mind when I come across it. So that does actually make a lot of sense to me. But it's funny, it's clever for Rothfuss to do it because when you read it, the first thing in my mind you go to are those rings that you don't wear in the mayor's court. That's the first thing you go to. And I think that's why it's so clever because he lays out these things that in retrospect seem quite obvious. When you make these connections for what's her name? Lackless? Mom?
Natalia.
Yeah, when you make those connections, it seems, this is kind of obvious. Once you make the connections, they're not. They're not at all obvious, which is why you say 15 million no, 15 million don't, right?
Yeah.
Well, just a little something I wanted to touch on while you bring up that bone ring again, Tim. I remember thinking that Kavoth had thrown that in the river, but I was incorrect in that. Am I right, Dan?
Yeah, he says it would be too dramatic.
Yeah,
I think he
holds on to that.
I think
he holds on
to it. Yeah.
The reason why I bring it up is because
the bone ring comes from Stape, and or whatever his name is, and the bone ring is extraordinarily meaningful. It's a lifetime debt that Stape feels for him because of how he saved the mayor. I think it was the wood ring that he thought about throwing, but that he thinks it would be. Actually, that's another element. You've brought that up a couple times, and I like it because it's something I like about Kavoth. It's one of those Curb Your Enthusiasm moments where it's like, dude, come on, man. It's too dramatic. Yeah. It's too freaking WB to do it, man. It's just, it's too Lifetime.
Well, and I think it's significant, especially if, they mentioned it could be a key to the chastity belt. You have to put that ring in there just right to open up that chastity belt.
Yeah, that's definitely it. It's all about.
You just rub it.
You
just rub it on the outside, and it goes ring. It does that, and it makes the ring sound.
Oh, it makes the sound too. We figured it out. We got it.
Voila! It literally just goes voila, and confetti sprays up.
You have to bring her inside the circle of gray stones, and so all three of the pieces are super important.
I guess it could be like
getting this chastity belt off.
Could be like a diaphragm too, some kind of a magical diaphragm.
Not to dovetail or go too far off the topic, but I feel like it's natural at this point. When the three of them are sitting, when it's the mayor and Meluin and Kavoth with the box. She shows it to him and all the preamble built up and how uncomfortable she is in the moment and how much the mayor has to sell Kavoth on it and how he can feel that it's so great. There's so much mystique.
She won't even let Mayor touch it. If I remember right.
Yeah, she does. She lets him. Oh, okay. Yeah,
she lets him touch it, but she's very.
Her thing is not letting anybody else see it.
Yes, yeah. and she's very particular about where this could go, what you can do with it, how much they've thought about. I mean, how much it's been in the family for how long. It's really great.
But I think as far as the third clue in both those poems, the one a ring that's not for wearing, and in the boys' poem it was one of them a ring unworn. I'm almost convinced that it's the circle of Greystones just because of how important Greystones are to the story. Obviously, they're mentioned constantly. so many times in big events in his life, he's around Greystones. I don't think that Greystones are not going to be significant into getting in the Doors of Stone with how prominent a role they play behind the scenes throughout this book, and how they are like secret portals to get into the Fae. And so they're monster aspect of this world, and I think they're going to play a part into how to get into the Doors of Stone.
It does also seem like it's not just a door. There are ways to get into the Fae and these other places to keep things at bay. So it does seem like whatever is held behind it, which I have an idea, whatever's held behind it is all powerful and has evil incarnate, it seems, within. That's very important. It's not just behind a door. It's difficult to locate. And it seems like Block of Drazen Tor, Ring of Greystones, it's almost like, that staff with the stone at the top for the Raiders of the Lost Ark, when you have the map and it kind of pinpoints. That's what I feel like those two combined to become. So there is, and again, it's innocuous and it's hidden away from us, but you piece the things together and you can get to it. And Kvothe loves puzzles, man.
Yeah. Then, the fourth clue in both the chapters, I also think are the same. It's in the poem he tells his mom that his mom hears is one, a sharp word not for swearing. The boy's poem, it's one, a word that is forsworn. I think that there is a word that he needs to say, like a name, someone's true name, or there could be something like Edro, like a magic word that he has to say. I think there's some aspect of naming that is going to be important to be able to open the door. And I think the fact that they say like a word that is forsworn makes me think, or not for swearing, it's going to be a name like Telu's name or Iax's name or someone's name that you're not supposed to say, because you have two aspects. Like you have Telu's name when they're in Tarbean and the little kid's like, hey, don't, basically don't take Telu's name in vain.
That's what I was thinking.
So it could be,
What's the
could be something like that.
What's the creator of all?
Aleph.
I was thinking, one of those two. It would be Aleph's true name or Telu's true name, and for the same reason, because that gets peppered through where it's like, there's, and that character itself, I think, is vitally important because the guy's like a thug, man. He's part of a group of people that are taking advantage of kids and beating the crap out of them, stealing all their stuff. Yet he still is like scared of like, don't say that name. So it's one of those things that weaves through our world where it's like, it's that fear of God. So I think it does seem like that would be one of the more difficult names for someone to know, because it is, the true name, but it's something that's lived forever, or, it obviously would loom extraordinarily large that the creator of creation, would be powerful.
It could also be Iax's true name. Like, Florian's not willing to say Iax's name. She's not willing to say Iax. I don't remember how she references him, but she's unwilling to say his name. And so it could be Iax's name. His name obviously sounds like, not for swearing or a word that is forsworn, based on the fact that Florian, as powerful as she is, and he's likely locked behind those doors, is not even willing to say his name. So I think there's some extreme power in his name, and I think that might be the name that is needed. That's a word that is forsworn. I think it might be Iax's true name.
Well, and that's, I could see that, and he's in the same group. I mean, again, he's like these are all creators. These are all of the utmost, most powerful throughout this world. So I would,
Telu and him are the two that are both mentioned in a aspect of you don't want to say their name, like that kid, like, don't say his name in vain, or Florian unwilling to say Iax's name. So that's why I think it's likely a name that he needs. And then and to the next clue, it's there's a door without a handle. I think that is describing the Lackless door, because there's a part where Claudicus if you remember, Claudicus is the mayor's arcanist. He's the one that was poisoning him, trying to kill him. And Claudicus tells Kavoth a little piece of information about the Lackless family. He says, in the past, it has mutated several times from Leoklos, Loklos, Leolos. All three of these translate as Lackless, which ties into a legend surrounding the family, where it's rumored that there is a secret door on the oldest parts of their ancestral estate which has no handles, hinges, or locks. So that is what leads me to believe that the Lackless door and the Doors of Stone are the same thing. I think that the Lackless door has no handles, no locks, no hinges. It is a smooth door, and that would also align with the Circle of Greystones, where there is no locks, there is no handle, there is no hinges. It's basically like the Stonehenge. And so that would all align with a lockless door, which would align with it being the Doors of Stone. That would also align with it being a lockless door, which would align with it being the lackless door. And so that's part of the reason I believe that the Doors of Stone and lackless door are all the same thing.
Hey, Dan, going back to this estate with this handleless and hingeless door that's just smooth, did anybody just think maybe that it's just a wall and try to see what's on the other side? Maybe it's just a wall and the bathroom's on the other side or something. I don't know, it sounds like a wall. Yeah, it sounds like a wall.
Outhouse. Is it by the Stormwall Mountains? I don't remember where they're located.
No, I think she probably lives around where Mayor Alvaron lives in Ventus.
Ventus. Okay. Well, yeah, but Ventus on the outer edge, the storm walls are over there. The reason why I bring it up is it feels like the Skrill came from the Stormwall Mountains. Am I wrong about that? It seems like there's a lot.
It came down.
Somewhere. Yeah, he doesn't mention the Stormwall Mountains, but he's like, I thought the mountains, and then he doesn't finish. So it sounded like he was going to say, I thought the mountains would hold him back longer. It would take him longer to get here because they would have to go over the mountains. Okay. But he doesn't say Stormwall Mountains. I would assume it is the Stormwall Mountains. But I think the door leads you to a place. I think it's kind of like the Fae. Like you go through this and then you're not in the actual world. So I think there's going to be some complexity to exactly where the door is and what's the delineation between the Lackless door, the Doors of Stone. I think there's, there's a door you go through that leads you down a path. Like there's a door that you go through at the Lackless door, then that leads you down a path to the Doors of Stone. It could be something like that, where it's not they're connecting pieces, where it's not like just one piece of the puzzle. You got to go through one to get to the other.
So you're saying
it could be complex.
So you're saying the Lackless door could be different than the Doors of Stone, them not being the same.
It could be, or
the university.
It could be that that's not the final step, that once you go through the Doors of Stone, you're traveling to basically like another dimension, and then opening the flood or whatever releases you somewhere else.
Yeah, I wonder.
You don't come out the same place.
I wonder, because
could be there. I mean, like there's no way to know exactly what is going to happen. And when you open it, do they come out the same door, or they release somewhere else, or is this two separate doors? There's no way to really know for sure.
He's left it quite open in the sense that we don't really see clearly what the Fae looks like, what it is, what, wrap our hands around it or our minds around where this location is. There is,
it's basically like another dimension.
Well, and there are multiple doors as well. There's the university. There's this Lackless door. There's perhaps another door. So I do believe the Greystones have to play a part, because they play into that as well, where they seem to be a channel towards it. And the moon seems to play a part with all of these things as well, which is a really great thing to do, to utilize in my opinion by Rothfuss, is because it's one of those things that throughout cultural history, it's this thing in the sky and you interpret it. All different cultures have put different spin on the significance of planets, the moon, stars, and utilization of, what these things mean, and interpreting it in different ways. So
yeah, so like you could think of it it could be a situation where there's a Lackless door, you get through that, then you're in the circle of gray stones, you got to go through that leads you to the Fae. And when you're in the Fae, you're in like some aspect of the Fae that you can't just normally access. Maybe this is the only access point to this part of the Fae. And then once you're going in there and you're able to, you open these doors, you release the flood, but maybe they don't come out where you came in. Maybe they're coming out in a different thing. Or it could all be the same thing. Maybe the doors of stone, Lackless door, the same thing, but it's the same thing. Once you go in there, you release the flood. Maybe when you release that flood, they don't come out the same way you came in.
Yeah, that's the other thing I was gonna mention. So that's an interesting part of it, is if it's another dimension. It's also interesting how it's been implied that this door, or a door, keeps evil at bay.
So
right, and it seems like Sleepless Lanre is behind a door. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like whatever. There's a hindrance. There's something that's being held back that can be released, and that's been implied by the Scrael. That's been implied by the Highwaymen, and just how depraved the world's become. I mean, that's implied in chapter 2. I mean, from the beginning. Well, it's implied from the beginning, from the prologue.
Is there any mention of, going in one place to the Fae and coming out another, location-wise, in Kavoth's world?
It's more time.
I know. I know time's
I'm sure that that's the case. I'm sure there's multiple ways into the Fae and out of the Fae. I don't think that there's just one way in, one way out.
What I mean is because we're led to believe that many gray stones have some kind of, from what he said with Felurian, that many gray stones are, doors or entryways. But is there any mention of going, a door letting you in one place, but then if you go out the same place from the Fae, that you enter somewhere else in the world?
Nowhere says that specifically. Yeah, no, I mean, it could be that way. We don't know, but nowhere says it specifically. That's
I kind of wanted to just hash it out, because the things that you guys are bringing up in this episode are so mind-boggling, or to new readers. Like, it all makes perfect sense. It makes great sense what you guys are saying, but it's to a first-time person who first time hears it, it's mind-blowing. And there's
my favorite
thing
about it is so much of it is open to interpretation. That's kind of what I like so much about, like, the Fae itself. It's how you picture it in your mind. It's subtly described. It's subtly, there's these implications of where he's going, what's taking place, but you don't. I mean, it's very hazy. It's very dreamlike. And the whole experience for Kavoth is dream, and we're in him. That's how we experience the Fae. So it's great. I mean, and then the fact that Bass comes out of it and we see who he is. I mean, it keeps everything very open to interpretation. It's super interesting.
And then kind of going back into it, then like the next part you have is right beside her husband's candle, and in the boys' poem, you have one a time that must be right, and one a candle without light. And so I think these three all kind of tie together. Those three little lines is right beside her husband's candle, and one a time that must be right, one a candle without light. I think these could be referring to the moon. That's my best guess, is that because you could think of the candle as, or you could think of the moon like a candle. It's not, or a candle that is not lit, without light. It's a new moon. It illuminates an area, but it is not a lit itself. It's reflecting light. So a candle without light, it could be you could think of the moon as a candle, as it lights things up for you at night. So you could think of it as a candle in that sense. But one that is not lit, you could think of that as like a moonless night. So a candle without light, you could think of the moon as a candle, and you could think of a moonless night as a candle without light. So I think
is that what's being implied on the pot that was at the Modern Farm?
I don't know what's being implied, but the other aspect is it could have something to do with Haliax, because on the pot that's at the Mothin Farm, she mentions Haliax as two candles on his shoulders. Like one's a lit golden or whatever, like a normal flame, and the other's like black, like a black flame. So there's an aspect of candles next to him. And so I think there might be a combination of that something has to do with Haliax, and then another aspect of it has to be, it says like a time that's right. So it says one a time that must be right, one a candle without light. I think that's telling you it needs to be a moonless night.
So this goes back to what we've heard from Felurian.
She's like,
go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, and she's like right beside her husband's candle, like, so the candles are over his shoulder. I think that there might be something to do with Haliax plus a moonless night that plays an aspect in opening the Lackless door. I don't know but that is my best guess, is that a moonless night is going to be important.
Doesn't Felurian talk about this, about how important the moon is, about how...
Correct, yes. She's like, she mentions something to him where she's like, be careful wandering around on a moonless night. You might slip into the Fae and not be able to come out again. And she also mentions it in regards to that they travel basically in and out of this world. Part of that, their ability to travel between worlds, has something to do with the phases of the moon. Like a moonless night or a full moon, these are the times it seems like that you're able to travel in. But she does mention a moonless night being particularly dangerous time to be around Greystones. And so I think that the Circle of Greystones being at it when it's a moonless night is going to play a pivotal role in being able to open the door.
Just to throw another thing out, Dan, does Bast, after Bast sings a nursery rhyme to Kvothe later on, doesn't he compare Kvothe's life to a candle?
Yeah, I mean, he's just like, what is your flickering portend? But he's just talking about his life force. He's didn't compare him to a candle. He compared him to like a fire flickering out.
Midichlorians or whatever they're called.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ah, shit. What the hell were we just talking about?
But so you have. I think a moonless night.
I was going to say something that is insinuated by that as well is the moonless night is the shortest span of time possible, right? I mean, if you think about it, you have much more time that elapses throughout new moon, crescent moon, waning and waxing, gibbous, all that. You have more time. It's much less likely that you're going to stumble into this if it's going to be on a lack of moon.
It's basically moon. one night, at least in our world, one night where there's a new moon.
So it's the least likely scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Ari,
then moving on to the next aspect, there's a door without a handle, which we've already talked about. Like the Lackless door has no handles.
It's a wall.
And I also think this could be mentioning the Lackless box that he sees from Maelwyn, because he's like, there's a door without a handle, and he says, in a box no lid or locks, Lackless keeps her husband's rocks. So that, I think, has to do with the Lackless box that Maelwyn shows Kvothe. Because it's in a box, there's no lid or locks, and when he rolls it around, he says it sounds like there's a stone in there or something. So what that stone could be, I don't know. I mean, it could be something like as crazy as it's the stone that Scarpy stabbed his eye out with. And maybe that plays a role in something. But it's
Wait, did you say Scarpy?
There's
you mean
there's
Celotos,
not a
right?
lot of good guesses on what could be inside it, but I think it's important.
I
What's
think
that?
you said Scarpy. You meant Celotos.
Celotos.
Yeah, yes. The stone Celotos stabs his eye out with. The other thing is it could be like the name of the moon that Jax, he puts the name of the moon inside of a box. That's how he captures it. And so it could be her name incarnate, like the name that he's got locked away, like he's got to unlock her name to be able to open this door. That could play a role into this as well.
Hey, Dan, the other thing, the other box that we know that has no lid or locks would be Kavoth's box, his trunk.
I don't think that is what they're talking about, because it does have locks. It has 3 locks. It's the
thrice locked box. That's right. I'm just making connections.
I'm almost 90%. I'm almost 100% sure that it is the Lackless box, and I just don't know what's in it. But I'm fairly certain that is what they're talking about with. And because it has to do with the Lacklesses, I'm fairly certain that's it. That's hers. They in a box, no lid or locks. I'm fairly certain that is the Lackless box. I think that's obviously going to play a big role in book 3. I don't think they just mention that thing and then it's not going to play any kind of role. It's going to play a pivotal role, and I think that's what it's going to play a pivotal role in. Is it's needed to be able to open the doors of stone.
It seems like there's got to be something inside it because it's so difficult to get into. And again, this door is holding something at bay. So you need to make it as difficult as possible for somebody to get into it. But for some reason, I guess for the intrigue, for the super intrigue, you still got to have a way to get this thing.
So do you guys...
Well, because you can't destroy it, right? I mean, that would be the implication. That's why I keep thinking Sleepless Lanre, because you can't destroy this thing. It can't be killed, clearly. Why else is it behind a door? Why is it being held at bay? Why is it being locked away? Because if you could kill it, destroy it. Just destroy the frickin' thing.
Well, I'm thinking, and this is just... What's Lanray's wife's name?
Lyra.
So Lyra is the only one that we don't keep talking about, and I just want to throw this out there that she, with her voice, is able to bring back Lanray. I'm not putting pieces together. I'm just throwing these things out that, with her voice or with her naming, she's able to bring Lanray back, but she actually brings back this huge disaster, and maybe not till after she dies. Yeah. Right, but he shouldn't have even been there. And also, we don't know of any other story where someone can come back from the dead. He does it because, she calls him back. So I don't know. Mm-hmm. I'm just throwing it out there because, she's somebody that may get lost, in all the characters. But I feel like it's...
No, she plays a pivotal role. I'm going to bring up.
Okay.
I think she's a pivotal role of these poems. Not because of that, but I'll get into it. They, kind of finishing up these poems, like the next part I wanted to bring up was in the boys' poem, because he goes, "One a son who brings the blood." So it's obviously the Lackless doors, Lackless box. So it's all about the Lacklesses, and a son who brings the blood. I think that is referring to a Lackless male, which would refer to Kavoth.
That makes sense.
So I think
which is great too, because
he's going to be integral to being able to open.
Well, it's great too because he's the bloodless, yet he brings the blood.
Yeah.
Rothfuss is pretty good at this writing thing.
Yeah. And then
he's not bad.
The other part is there's a secret she's been keeping. He's been dreaming and not sleeping. So what I think this is referring to is when he says she's been keeping a secret, that he's been dreaming and not sleeping. This could refer to naming or shaping, because the sleeping mind is obviously put in connection with naming. And Florian describes shapers as dreamers. So when she says he's been dreaming and not sleeping, I think that might refer to he's been shaping instead of naming. And I think that shaping is also going to be pivotal into being able to open the door.
So what's that saying that
you're saying Kavoth has been shaping. Is that
No?
I think well, it says there's a secret she's been keeping. He's been dreaming and not sleeping. I forget who he is or she is. I think the reason they put been dreaming and not sleeping is I think the connection you're supposed to make is the sleeping mind versus Florian describing shapers as dreamers. So he's been shaping instead of naming. And I think that is shaping is going to play some kind of aspect into being able to open the doors. You're going to have to be a shaper to open these doors, not just a namer.
Anything to Lanray not being able to fall asleep?
It could be like, I mean, it could have something to do with the 4 doors that the mind uses to escape pain. Could be. I just don't know. I don't know in what respect, and I don't know why escaping pain would, hiding yourself behind these doors would help you get into another door.
Sure.
No, it seems like,
but it could be, but it would seem that it would be more logical, and it would make more sense if shaping is involved versus hiding behind doors to escape pain.
It seems like the only I mean, at least the essence I got from Lanray's story is for him to be locked behind a door, it would be to protect the world from his wrath, because his wrath is ceaseless, right? He wants to end the world, destruction. and he it doesn't seem like he has it doesn't seem like he grasped some need in his mind to stop himself. You know what I'm saying?
The opposite.
So, yeah, exactly. That's yeah. So, yeah, I like a lot how Rothfuss uses this sleep dream perspective in multiple ways, where it's the sleeping mind, it's those doors of the door of sleep, but then it's also the subconscious. He plays with the subconscious in the way that you have to access it. You have to like play in that arena to be able to name and shape. And it's those that rule the world. It's the Elodans, it's the Lanrays, it's those people that are the powerful, the ultimate powerful. Yeah. I don't know, it's a plane he's created that's super fascinating.
Yeah, I would, and because of the war, the creation war, which is pivotal in this overall story, is the battle between the namers and the shapers. I would be surprised if there's not some aspect of shaping that Kvoth is going to need to be able to open these doors, and I think that's probably the best clue that the shaping is needed.
So hey, I don't know if it's a backtrack or not, but going back to the poem, where, we're talking about Lady Lackless's husband, I assume that he's been dreaming and not sleeping. And so what we're saying is that he is a shaper. Am I right in saying that? And
I think it's saying that the shaping is needed. I don't know that you have to just read it exactly literal, but I think it's shaping is definitely needed is what my guess would be.
And so my question is, who's Lady Lackless's husband? Who's Lady Lackless?
We'll go into that. That's that's how we'll tie it all together. But before we dive into who all these characters might be that are in the poem, there's the other aspect is it's a door that holds the flood, which I think that's important. And it seems like in the frame and when he's Coat in the bar that he has unleashed the flood on the world. That you now have Scrail, that these people don't know what are. There's the skin dancer that hasn't been seen in thousands of years or however long Bass says, and they're different, they're stupid. Like he was talking about, normally a skin dancer, when you kill one body, would just jump into someone else's body, and then they would start using that to kill everybody, and they would just jump from body in body until everybody was dead. But this one stays in the body. It was stupid. So I think the flood, I think that is the biggest clue that the door holds the flood. I think that's the biggest clue that this door is opened in book 3, is it feels like a flood has been unleashed on this world, and now the skin dancers are loose, the Skrull are loose, like these monsters have been unleashed on the world. And I also think that Ajax is likely someone who's been locked behind the door, so it's likely that he has been unleashed on the world. And you have one of the most powerful figures who has ever existed, with Aleph and Celatos and Lanre and Lyra. Ajax is the other guy that's, the most powerful shaper in the history of the world. He's the one that created the Fae mostly. And so I think it's an indication that these people have been unleashed on the world. And that...
I was just going to say, it's so heavy, too. I mean, I know we've talked about that, but the early chapters, it's as if it's almost like a joyless place at this point. There is joy in reminiscing, and when Kvothe talks about the past and the stories, there's liveliness and some music, but there's just nothing in live time. And well, I mean, we only have access to a couple days anyway, so I don't want to read too much into that, but it's heavy, man. The existing reality is super, super duper heavy.
Well, there's no doubt that something catastrophic has happened. I can't remember if it's happened or not yet, but when the guy comes in and talks about what he has seen Kvothe do, when the guy names Kvothe and says, "Hey, you're him," at the Waystone Inn, but I think the aspect of it is Kvothe blames himself, obviously, and it's something terrible that's happened that he's done. While you might think it's at this point that just that maybe Den has been killed or that Kvothe killed somebody or whatever it may be, the implications from the story are that there's something way bigger going on. Whether Kvothe caused the Skrull and everything like that, we don't know, except that Kvothe blames himself and does say, "This is all my fault."
Yeah, it seems likely that he's responsible. And, the fact that a son who brings the blood and all that kind of stuff, I think and it has to do with the Lackless family, and his mom's Natalia Lackless. I think it's highly likely that he's going to open the doors of stone. But kind of to finish up the last parts of these poems, like the last of the boys' poem was "One a thing tight held in keeping," which I think that might be in reference to the Lackless box as well, because they talk about in a box no litter locks. Lady Lackless keeps her husband rocks in the first one, and this one they say "one a thing tight held in keeping," so it sounds like a secret. And I think the secret is what's inside the Lackless box, because that's obviously a huge secret in this world and in the Lackless family. So I think I think that's just reiterating that you need whatever's inside the Lackless box. And then it finishes with, "Then comes that which comes with sleeping," which could be something to do with naming, or, sleeping is one of the ways you go behind the four doors to escape pain. So it could be something to do with that. I would think more than likely with naming, again, would be the most likely scenario that I would come up with. But those would be my best guesses for those parts.
Yeah, I don't.
And then to finish up the poem that he reads to his mom, it finishes with, "On a road that's not for traveling, Lackless likes her riddle raveling." And the last line, "Lackless likes her riddle raveling," I think the poem that he's reading is either a new poem that kind of played off of the boys' poem, and they created a second poem about the Lackless family, but they incorporated the fact that Lackless ran away with Rue, and so she likes her riddle raveling, could be her little raveling, like they call the Rue the ravel. And so it could be talking about Kvothe. So when they're referring to Lackless, they could be referring specifically to Natalia Lackless, and why she took it so personal when he was reading this poem is it's actually been written about her. Or it could be that they added this last line into a poem that's already existed for a long time, and they added just like an extra line into it.
What's so interesting about that to me, so if this is written by a group of individuals that know all, that have access to information, that are privy to the future or what the fatefulness brings.
How can it be a group of
They wrote
individuals?
this including Kavoth. Well, I think of the Emir. I mean, who else is writing this? Where's this coming from? It's coming from somebody. Yeah. And I mean, they're naming
clues anyway.
How old is he at this point? Is he like
12?
Yeah,
he's 12.
So I mean, they're talking about frickin' Luke Skywalker here. Like what? I mean, and when he's 12. So yeah, it's. That's what it says to me. I mean, that's what it hints to me, and we get those feelings from Scarpy and the existence of these stories that seem to pull the future into existence.
Yeah, and there's multiple stories like the fact that the Chandrian were scared away right before they killed him. The fact that he has dreams that tell him how to survive in the woods when he's by himself. He has a dream about the Greystones, which he's never seen, and learning knots from Ben, which he never learned. And then, like he's saved when he's dying in Tarbean. He's saved in a circumstance that doesn't make any kind of sense. That he would just be randomly
and it also
saved.
Speaks to when he's able to do things he shouldn't be able to do, like when Kilvin's like, "Well, how's that possible?" Mm-hmm. I don't know. Or even like the coincidences that Fitz points out, where he says, "Well, that seems too convenient." That he shows up at the Malden farm and here's dinner. So maybe it's not convenient. Maybe it is written in the stone, or whatever. Maybe it is this faithfulness that he's a kind of a pawn that's being utilized.
Both
to
being
a
degree. Pawn to his own fate.
It could be fate. It could be. Yeah, it could be fate. It could be that there's guys behind the scenes that are pulling the strings, and he's more like a puppet. And so, it could be like Rothfuss does with everything. It could be a number of different things.
Kavoth is definitely led
for sure
in all his endeavors. From one thing to another, he's kind of pulled by the nose. I have to think that, like,
every time it seems
the way he's brought up, the people who lead him, getting out of him waking up to get out of Tarbean, every little aspect of the story of Kavoth's life is brought up by someone else.
Well, it's someone else coming or leaving, and if it's anything that seems like happenstance, it's not. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's telling you look further.
Yeah, at first,
read deeper, because there's something.
At first,
to this.
I was very put off by the amount of happenstance, until I realized that it was integral, that it's it's part of it. It's not just you know what I'm saying.
It insists upon itself.
It's like a kid's story. You read a kid's story where people happen upon each other, and it's just a coincidence, and it works out great. Like a sitcom or something, that so and so met so and so, and they both had the same objective. That's not what's going on here, where it's happenstance. He's being led. I think it's clear.
So again, he's being led by whom? The Emir?
Yeah. Or the Chandrian?
I think it could be the angels and the Emir. It could be the Chandrian. Yeah, it could be any of them or all of them. It could all be pulling him in different directions. Yeah, I mean, we don't know. I think the Emir are definitely playing a role, because I think Scarpy is almost certainly a member of the Emir, and so I think that they are definitely playing a role, and I think the angels are highly likely playing a role.
What's super duper interesting about you can speculate and you can make a case for both. You can make a case that he's a pawn of the Chandrian or he's a pawn of the Emir.
So
you know what I'm saying? And that's what's so fucking great about how he's wove this all together. You know what I'm saying? Because you can make a case for either. Because he's unleashed hell on the world, so perhaps he was used to release hell. Yeah,
I'll further that it might be the Chandrian, in that they don't kill him when they had the opportunity to. Well, but they were
scared away. He literally commanded what's his face to kill him before he got fucking snippy with him, and then he went to teach him a lesson, and then by the time he was done teaching him his lesson, then he was like, "Oh shit, they're here. We got to get the fuck out of here."
Well, did he say put him behind the doors asleep?
He basically was saying put him out of his misery.
Or he might have been saying I'm playing the devil's advocate because I kind of think that he's led by the Emir, but the case can be made because a lot of
I just don't know why they would be like, someone's coming, and then Kavoth feels a presence, but that was just an act. Because like the fact that Kavoth feels the presence, he felt someone coming, makes it seem pretty crystal clear that someone was actually coming and scared them away, and that they weren't just like
coming
putting
to
on
his
a show
rescue.
for him.
Yeah, coming to his rescue.
Yeah,
actually. Yeah, I agree. That's at the same time.
What I love about it is you could interpret it either way. It's open to interpretation because you could make a case for saying they were led astray for a reason. It's kind of like why is Caudicus, by the way, why is Caudicus poisoning the mare? Maybe that's actually not a bad thing. You know, I mean, because he marries Meluan. So it's great because
maybe.
Yeah. And let me you know, because we're like that'll then we can dive into like the implications here, and that's one of them. The last part, the only other part of the poem was on a road that's not for traveling. That I think it gives a good indication of how to get to the Doors of Stone or a general area of where they are, because there's a place called Fey Reenial, which there's a story that Kavoth tells Will and Sim about a bum that is traveling Fey Reenial. He's walking by himself and he comes across different groups of people. Comes across the Adim. He comes across a Siridae. He comes across some Sealdish people and some Aturan people, and then he ends up coming across the Rue last. And so this guy's name was Skiop. And so Skiop, when he finds the Rue, he's like, he goes, once, years ago and miles away, 5 groups of travelers came to Fey Reenial. They chose their clearings and lit their fires. And then later on, it's Skiop walked through the center of Fey Reenial, and as he did, he saw a circle of greystones. And this is where the Edema Rue were camped. And I think that circle of greystones is the same circle of greystones that he dreams about. I think that the fact that they're in Fey Reenial and this is where the Rue were, I don't think this is a coincidence that these are the two that they talk about a circle of greystones in this story, and he dreams about a circle of greystones. I think they're the same. Part of the reason is they say that this is on a road that's not for traveling. Fey Reenial is described as a road that is not for traveling. This is not a road that you travel down. It's in some sense it's described as not a road for traveling. So I think that Fey Reenial is either like a separate dimension that you go to, and that you have to go into the separate dimension to be able to find the Circle of Greystones, which is the access to the Doors of Stone. You have to find, the way you find it is to go through the Black of Drazen Tor, that you have to find where that battle was fought. There's some kind of access point that leads you into Fey Reenial from there, and then Fey Reenial is where the Doors of Stone specifically is. So I think that's likely a road not for traveling. I think is going to be Fey Reenial, and I think that is going to be where the Circle of Greystones is, and that's where the Doors of Stone is. And I think likely the way to get to Fey Reenial is to find where the Battle of the Black of Drazen Tor is.
So that when they mention that road, it always reminds me of the road that Kavoth goes on to see the Cathay. That just happens to not have the guards on it. And Florian's like, how'd you even get there? I don't know. Maybe I'm grasping for straws here, but it just seemed like, at least that always reminded me, a road not for traveling, that Kavoth was on this road that led straight to the Cathay, and he was not supposed to be there.
I would be surprised just because of who the Cathay is, and to have him be at the entrance to the Lackless door. I would be surprised because he would just tell people how to open the door immediately and unleash hell.
But maybe on the other side, like on the other side of the door is the Cathay. See what I'm saying? Like
No, that's definitely not it, because they lock this behind the door, and like it's not just that you can go into the Fae and get there, because that's not locked behind a door.
Yeah,
everybody has access to the.
If that were the case, then the bat, yeah.
I don't think it has to do with the Cathay.
What? So, remind me. So, Fae Rhiannon has anything to do with Mir Tyrannial, or no?
No, they don't mention them in connection with each other. But it could be like Mir Tyrannial is. There's. Maybe that's, it's close to where the Black Drowsator was fought, and like when you go through some portal through some Greystone, like Fae Rhiannon could be, Mir Tyrannial, but the Fae version of it could be that.
That's kind of what popped in my mind, because when I hear it it feels like that to me, but I don't know if it's that simple. You know what I mean? Like I don't know.
Yeah, it could be that's where the name comes from, is the Fae version of Mir Tyrannial, Fae Tyrannial. Could be, I don't know. I don't know exactly where Fae Tyrannial is or exactly how to get there. It's just pure speculation. But I do think that Fae Tyrannial is going to be where the Doors of Stone is. I think that circle of Greystones that is in there is going to come into play.
Well, I agree with that. Couldn't the road not for traveling be the road to Tenue?
Yeah, that
because
euphemism.
It's literally nothing. It doesn't mean anything.
Do we even know what Tenue is?
Yeah, it's a place.
It's an actual place.
Yeah, it's on the map. Yeah, it's a place.
Okay.
But Dan ignored it completely. So
yeah, when when Dan ignores something, there's something to it.
Yeah,
he's deep in thought.
No,
I wrapped them up.
I was looking at my notes, and apparently when I was talking to you, I deleted the entire notes I had on this whole thing. But the good thing is we had finished the poem, so luckily I deleted it as we finished the pertinent information that I needed. There's a couple things I'll have to go off of memory on, but I think that ties it in. So I think that gives a good indication that these poems are important. They're not just random poems. It's not just sexual innuendo. I think this is about the Lackless door, the Lackless box, the Doors of Stone, and Ajax, and what's hidden behind there, like the Scrael and these things. I think they're important. I think that is going to be an aspect that plays a huge part into why Kvothe is so distraught on what he's done to the world. I think a big part of it is he's going to have opened these doors and unleashed hell in the world. But who is Lady Lackless in the poems? I think it could be his mom, but I also think it goes back further than that. And I think one of the biggest clues to it is that Ajax is almost certainly the founder of the Lackless family. It's almost certainly that Ajax is a Lackless. The Lacklesses are described as the luckless family by their detractors. Ajax in Hespa's story as Jax is described as a luckless boy. He's got no luck. There's obviously a terrible luck surrounds him.
He?
So there's that connection. I had not
realized that he describes him as luckless.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a cinch.
Yeah, he's all depraved. That's why.
Yeah, and also you have the aspects of Kvothe is described a number of times as having Fae blood, or a little bit. He's Fae touched. He's got a little fairy blood in him. There's numerous descriptions where they say he's got a Fae look to him. And Jax is also described as being like part Fae or having Fae blood or some aspect of that. Then there's also like Jax, because he was luckless, every time he'd get a new shirt, he would tear a hole in it. Kvothe, every time he gets a new shirt, he tears a hole in it. He ruins his shirts constantly. And then there was the last aspect is that Ajax is described as having like ever-changing eyes, or his eye color is changing, which is obviously similar to Kvothe. And his eyes
all the time,
change color with his moods. So there's all these similarities and these descriptions of them that tie them all together. And I think the fact that Ajax is likely the one who was locked behind the doors of stone, the Lackless box, the Lackless, I think these are all implying that he was the OG Lackless, and they locked him behind his own ancestral lands. They locked him behind a door on his ancestral lands that he cannot get out from behind.
Well, and he turns bad, right, as well, right?
Ajax is the one that started the creation war. Yeah, like the
so that makes sense.
He obviously probably doesn't think he's the bad guy. Like he was just like he's in their own right. He's like describing. She was like, the Shapers did beautiful things at first, and they created all these wonderful things, and then there was a chance for peace until Ajax then stole the moon. So he set in motion the creation war, and then through that battle he ended up getting locked behind these doors of stone. And so I think it's likely that he's the original Lackless. But when they talk about Lady Lackless, I think that's probably talking about like when they're like Lady Lackless and her husband. I think that's talking about Lyra and Lanre. I think Lyra is Lady Lackless, and I think Lanre is her husband. And so it could be that Lyra is Ajax's son, or Lanre is Ajax's son or his son-in-law.
Man,
and so much. I think one of the reasons I think Lyra could be Lady Lackless is there's all those indications in the poem. Like you have the candles where Ajax has the candles over his shoulders, and she is like right beside her husband's candle. I think that could play into it, but also like talks about Lady Lackless's black dress, which we tied into Block of Draws and Tor.
Yeah.
But also it could
Isn't that where she dies?
That's where he dies.
Oh,
and also black dress is, you wear black when, you're in mourning and someone dies. So like Lady underneath her black dress, underneath where he died, I think there's a superficial connection. It might not be true, but I think that would be my best guess into who Lady Lackless is and her husband. My best guess would be Lyra and Lanre, because I don't know who the fuck else it would be if it's not them. Because it doesn't mention like Ajax having a wife, so I don't think that it's talking about him and his wife. So the only two other major figures, married figure from that time, the only ones is Lanre and Lyra. So it seems like just at a process of elimination, it's got to be them.
Well, the only women are Puriel, right? It's Puriel.
Well, and that's way later. Lyra. That's even way later.
But that's
Puriel's even way later.
Okay.
And then like
There's
you have
no
like
other examples
Gisa
of old women.
and Ordal and like the ones that become angels.
Yeah,
they become angels. So I don't think that's them. No.
Separate to me, but
yeah, I agree. I don't think they have.
I'm just trying to tell you, like, is I'm listening to this episode 4. I've already paused 14 times to think about what all we're saying. I can't even hardly contribute to this because of how much of this still blows my mind. How many aspects of the book that you?
I wonder if Rothfuss intentionally like he snickers in his mind when he makes all these he throws all these implications together, because it's not an accident. It's not an accident that but there's only so much. I mean, one thing that a writer's going to be cognizant of is all he's giving us is what he's created in the words on the page. And we can make connections based on what we see, and he holds back certain things and gives us certain things. But I mean, he's gotta love that part of it. It's just like snickering in the back of his mind, like they don't know. They like it could be this, could be this.
No, he's laid the whole. It's not a snickering. It's a satisfaction. He has done this on purpose. I mean. Yeah, no, I know. He's not laughing at us. All I'm saying, like he's even though he's brought us down these trails, he's got to love this. He's got to love.
I would.
He's got to love.
Laugh at. I would love it.
Yeah, what a glorious, what a great picture he's painted with. I don't even know how to. Maybe I can explain it as a maze. Where the maze drawer
it's a maze maker man.
There's so many different things that you could pass, you could go down, and
well, yeah, I mean, just think about any two characters that you want to pit against, like what is Cauticus? What is his ultimate role? What role does he actually play? And you can just go down that road with him with the
mayor.
Brandur. Is it Brandur? Braden, yeah.
Oh, now Braden the guy that plays chess with Kvothe or whatever that game is.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
But the implications that you can spin out of these poems. Okay, so when you go through it, then you start tying the pieces, and you obviously, okay, they're the Lackless door, and this is what he needs to get behind him, and then, okay, is it Ajax behind the door, and then is Ajax a Lackless, is Lyra and Lanre a Lackless, and if they're Lacklesses, and Kvothe's mom is Natalia Lackless, that means that Kvothe is a descendant of Ajax, or Lyra and Lanre, or all three of them, and that could explain why he's so powerful, why he seems to be such a central figure, why he's able to do these things that Master Kilvin can't even comprehend, why he's able to name Florian. The first time he sees her, he's able to name her and control her, and he could have killed her. And he's able to do just these unbelievable things that just don't seem humanly possible. It could be that he's a descendant of the most powerful people that have ever existed on this world.
Yeah, also why he has these backers who help him at the most, what look like the most dire straits that come to his rescue.
Yeah, it could explain why someone jumps in and saves him from the Chandrian, why he's given that dream, why he's saved in Tarbean when he's bleeding out, dying, in the cold after he got the shit beat out of him by that guard when he went to the good side of town, why he was saved in that situation, and like so many things that happened to him that he's able to just survive by the skin of his teeth. And it seems like there's people guiding him, or that people are watching him or trying to control him or use him. It seems like it's because of he's an important figure, and if he's a descendant of Ajax or Lanre, Lyra, or all three, that would explain so much about what's going on in these books. And then you can branch it out into other aspects. You could look at, like Tim's mentioned, Cauticus. The big question is Cauticus is why is he trying to kill the mayor or prevent him from getting married or have kids? Well, when you think about the poem is like a son who brings the blood, he ends up marrying Maelwyn Lackless. It could have been that he was originally set to marry Natalia Lackless. And so it could have been a situation where he could have been Kvothe's dad. And he could have been, it had, different things happen.
Why do you speculate that, and what ramifications?
No. Listen. I'm saying that he ended up marrying Maelwyn Lackless because he had to marry someone that was almost equal to him in power, so he didn't give up any leverage to the King Roderick. So there was only a set few people he could marry. Like he tells Kvothe, I only have one option. I either marry Maelwyn Lackless or nobody. And so it could have been a situation that had he not married Maelwyn, he would have married her older sister, Natalia Lackless. So by a twist of fate, instead of Kvothe being the son of Arladin and Natalia Lackless, had things gone different, had Arladin never showed up there, he could have been the son of the mayor and Natalia Lackless. because the mayor seemed to be desperate to marry into that Lackless family because that was his only option. He didn't have other options, other women. So Natalia and Maelwyn would have been the two. But Natalia dips out, so Maelwyn's the one he ends up with. But why is Caudicus trying to prevent him from getting married or, keeping him sick and not killing him? It could be that he was trying to prevent the mayor marrying Maelwyn and creating a Lackless heir, a male heir that could open the doors. Could be that Caudicus is working for the Emir and he is trying to keep the doors of stone shut. So that could be an explanation, because if you remember, the mayor was flabbergasted. He was like, why the fuck would this guy turn on me? I give him
it took him forever
everything
to be sold. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that would be a great explanation, is that Caudicus is an Emir, and he's trying to prevent a Lackless heir from being born. So since the mayor is hell-bent on marrying Maelwyn Lackless, he's doing everything in his power to prevent that from happening.
And I'll curtail that by saying the fact that Kvothe was there at the right time to thwart that plan could lend to the fact that Kvothe is also being used, or specifically being used by the Chandrian, or if Ajax is in charge of the Chandrian from behind the scenes. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, I mean, there could be an aspect to it where Kvothe was positioned by someone to stop Caudicus and to thwart the Emir's plans.
Crazy, man. There's so much.
But,
this is the of all the episodes we've done, this is the most wild. And I'm not saying the 4, I'm saying the 17 or whatever we've done. This really is the episode that will lead people in to tell them how much more is going on in this story. If they're not going to Reddit or going back to theorize, there's so much more theory to this than you would ever think.
The great thing is, I mean, every single revelation is so great, because, like, when we just talked about Caudicus and how long it took for the mayor to be sold, that he was against him, the whole revelation takes forever, and it's it's fantastically done, because the Stape is trying to prevent the mayor from being upset about all the birds dying when Kvothe needs the birds to die. It's so great. Like, I mean, how it all plays out is it's always just artfully done, man, and it's so thoughtful on every little procedure on how these things are revealed, and we're along for the ride in every aspect of it. It's just great. I still feel like Lanre. It makes sense to me that Lanre would be behind the doors, because he's the force of evil. He was the unleashed, right? He's
Haliax, though. Haliax is wandering around.
Oh yeah, I guess
he's
that's
the force of evil, at least in one aspect, one specific time of war in the history of the world.
Another part
I say it because we keep talking about the sleepless and the.
Well, another part that ties Ajax to Haliax is Haliax. It means breath of Ajax.
Oh.
Like Hal in Latin means breath, so Haliax, breath of Ajax. So that could tie them together as far as them being related son-in-law, or it could be an aspect of when, in order for him to try to save Lyra, and he talked to the Cathay, like Bass says, before Ajax started the Chandri, and he talked to the Cathay. It could be that he went and talked to the Cathay, and the Cathay was like, you have to gain these abilities that allow you to pass through any door. Because he's like, I can't sleep, I can't die, I can't, go mad. All the 4 doors. He's like, he says he can't utilize in him. He's like, no door bars my passing. So it could be that he gained some power that allowed him to go to speak to Ajax. And there's something that happened when he spoke to Ajax that is why he became Haliax, breath of Ajax. There could be some kind of aspect in that fact that he can't pass through the doors could have been, that the thing that, why he is who he is now is because now he's in a situation where he can't die, can't kill himself. There's no escape for him. He's just living in torment now, and the Cathay just completely fucked him over and tricked him into doing something disastrous for himself.
And again, the way Rothfuss describes that is, again, doors.
Yeah.
Right? The door.
Who do you...
He always layers it on it.
You guys speculate at all who the Cathay might be?
I don't think he's anybody else in the story. I think he's just the Cathay.
Tim?
Some people have...
It feels like, no, I agree with Dan. It feels like the Cathay is the Cathay, and it's not something else. It's literally...
You don't think it could be Ajax?
No, he's definitely not Ajax.
Why?
Because they're described separately. Ajax is described as talking to the Cathay. He is like, before Ajax stole the moon, he talked to the Cathay.
Oh, yeah, he talked to the Cathay.
They're described as two separate
right.
people by multiple people. Florian and... Like, Florian won't mention Ajax's name. She talks about the Cathay.
Okay.
It is very strange. And we see that with Bast as well. I mean, so Bast and Florian, both of the Fae, don't fuck around with tempting fate, right? Like, it is not a joke to them. Like, you don't say it. Like, so when Bast flips out about Kavoth,
it seems like Florian views Ajax, or at least naming Ajax is very dangerous, whereas Bast thinks the Cathay is the ultimate danger. Obviously, Florian thinks that the Cathay is a extremely dangerous person as well, but she also lets Kavoth go out into the world after he spoke to the Cathay, so she obviously doesn't think it was that bad, or she's just extremely reckless.
Yeah, she's got a lot of hubris. We shouldn't forget that. She wants her story out there.
What a strange element, force to bring in the Cathay.
Yeah,
it's such a.
It's almost like the advocate or the adversary. It's
Yeah, but it just creates ripples. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't literally get involved. It gets involved in people's minds.
And that it can't lie. That's the thing that blows my mind, is that it can't lie. It tells you shit that will fuck up the entire world, but it can't tell a lie. I don't know that.
Yeah, it's a bizarre enemy.
Very.
Someone that is that vicious, that has complete clairvoyance, sees not only the future, sees every path, sees that every single word that I tell you, how I say it, the inflection of my voice, the cadence, and all that kind of stuff. Like, if the way he said it would cause something different to happen, he would see all different paths that it would go down. He knows exactly what he has to say to you to send you down the worst possible path for you and the world. So that's for someone to have that kind of ability and to also be malicious would make him a very fucking dangerous person in the world.
It's fucking insane. And then also to have this separate immortal force.
Yeah, and then you have basically like the Greek gods, battling it out with each other, and then this is just one of them. He's the trickster, the fucking the Loki, except for just pure evil. And then you have the other guys like Lanre and Lyra, and they're all just these absurdly powerful people, and Kavoth is just mixed up in the middle of them in their history, and he's mixed up in a story that's 5,000 years old, and it's pulling him into it and making him an integral part into finishing their fucking battle.
Well, and it does say everything that he can run into Florian and run that shit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That says so much in terms of he's not out of his league. He's where he's supposed to be.
Well, he basically almost killed her. He or at least has the ability to kill her.
He gets complete supremacy. I mean, he gets this
and beyond his beyond just the battle.
I mean,
he continues to play her throughout the whole thing. Now he barely keeps himself out of harm's way throughout the whole thing, whether it be months or years. But throughout the whole thing, he does make sure that he's safe.
Well, first he goes voluntarily, and then he exercises extraordinarily extreme self-control from beginning to end. And when he allows himself to lose control, it's only a part of his mind. He doesn't allow his full self. I mean, this is when he becomes, Skywalker, whatever you want to call it, man.
I do love the aspect of that story where she's basically in the real world and starts running back to the Fae. The other guy starts to run and then stops, and then Kavoth is like,
Dan.
"Oh no, I am in," and he just runs full speed. And has no qualms about it.
and he's coming right off of death's door, basically, and he had just accomplished something that is not possible. Yet he does it. He's
incredible. Wild man at that point.
It's about as wild. That's something that's so interesting about it. It's extraordinarily wild for him to do what he does, and then he exercises extraordinary self-control immediately afterwards.
Yeah, he's a beast. He is a beast, and I think it's because he's likely a descendant of some very powerful people, and I think this is what helps kind of. This is the chapter, and when you tie it in with the boys' poem, and you kind of tie it in with some other things like Natalia Lackless and Iax's story, if you start kind of putting these pieces together, which you need this chapter to be able to put a lot of these big pieces together. Once you get here on your second reread, you got to jump forward, start pasting some of these stuff together. Then you realize, like, oh shit, it's not just. Oh, he mentioned, I'm telling you 3 times, and then I'm telling you 3 times came up later on. Or, he mentioned Florian, and Florian comes up in book 2. And like, oh, he had all these little Easter eggs. It's like, no, he has some major fucking implications for book 3 hidden in the text of these 2 books. And you can, when you start going through that, and like, maybe not everything we say is correct, or we're not interpreting it the right way, or maybe we're overreading some of the things, but we're not overreading all of them. It is clearly, these poems are clearly integral into figuring out what's going to happen in book 3.
No, and the dead ends that we go down are also, I think a lot of them are meant to be there. Like the little things that I throw out there that Dan, I think rightfully you say a lot of the time, no, that's totally wrong because of this and this. It's not lost on Rothfuss to have put them there. He did that shit on purpose. I think that there's a lot of this is a dead end in the maze.
Well,
but, you should have
too,
gone down.
Like when you start going down these rabbit holes, then you start you just start looking for more things. You just start picking at everything, and so like it leads you to like, dude, I like when I go and I look up stuff online. I'll see some absurdly crazy theories that are so loosely connected where it's like, well, this is what, having so many hidden clues in the book, this is what this leads to. It leads to just massive conspiracy theories
schizophrenia,
where like people are just say, any thread they could pull on, they pull on one thread and they just unravel the shirt, but it doesn't make any sense. I think what you got to try to do
comes out.
Yeah, and also like, but what you got to do when you're looking for these theories, like the big things is there evidence for the theory? It's not just pure speculation. Is there evidence for it? And then also, if that's true, what would that imply? And do those implications make any kind of sense? I think those are like the first 2 things you have to look at. Yeah.
I think that one of the main things that you help me out with, Dan, is where does my little things that I have evidence for, I might have seen this, and so I say, but it contradicts somewhere else. I think that's a real important point to what Rothfuss does.
That's when
he lets you on, but you got to see where the contradictions are.
Well, there has to be sensibility also to why. Like, what does that entail? What does that imply? And is that payoff something that makes sense to the overall arching story itself? And if it doesn't,
like if you come up with a theory,
he's not just going to be reckless and throw stuff in just for the fun of it.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Right.
if you come up with a theory and then you're like, well, that would imply X. And then the implication is, and that means Kavoth has 6 fingers. And then it'd be like, well, okay. And why would Rothfuss, why? And it's like, Rothfuss is a really good writer. If the implication leads you to some weirdo, absurd thing, it's probably not the right guess, because Rothfuss didn't write in something that's going to be like, you're going to get to it at the end. You're going to be like, well, who gives a shit about that? That's stupid. Like if the implication leads you to something where you're like, well, that's stupid, it's probably not what he did.
Well, speaking of that, I'll just throw this out there for everybody to chew on. You could take it one way or the other.
I guess we have
I'll take it the other. I take it the other immediately.
Okay, but here's the thing, guys. Everybody at the Waystone Inn is dead. Coat, Bast, they're all dead. They're all corpses. That's my theory. You consider the implications.
I'm taking it the other.
Consider the implications.
If he went down the lost path, especially after like Unlost, when they're like, it's not going to be like they're all dead at the end, and then they finish it and they're like, well, they were all dead in the end.
Well, it could be a totally different dimension.
Dicks.
It's Shyamalan, M. Night Rothfuss.
Yeah.
Chew on it, audience. Don't listen to these guys right off.
It was all a dream. Just do that. It was all a dream.
It makes sense.
Yeah, it's like the instead, like with M. Night Shyamalan and that Sixth Sense, and except for instead of him being actually dead, he's just like a pedophile, and he's just trying to worm his way into this kid's life.
It's all a dream.
And that's it. That's the big twist.
Book 3 is just going to be like a highlight clip
it's like,
show.
What?
The end of book 3, it's just going to be Kavoth wakes up, his mother and father are right there, and he had a fever, and this was all.
Oh, that'd be so great.
Or even better, I got a better one for Sixth Sense. It's the kid finds out that this guy is actually a football coach, and he's just trying to worm his way into this kid's life because he wants to recruit him to go and play on his football team. He sees some real potential in the kid, and that's the big twist ending. Is that he wasn't there for any of the other reasons, to help him save dead people, to figure out why he sees dead people. He was there to recruit him to play football for him.
You know what? I see real potential.
Dan, I like
that real theory. Potential in you. Now, you're scrawny as shit, but you're quick. Yeah. You have good instincts.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to
see things. You would be a great quarterback. Like, you see things that no one else can see. Like, you could be able to read the football field really well with this power you have.
What an awful application. I mean, this dude's abilities. You're like, you know what? You'd be really good at this thing I'm really interested in.
Yeah.
I think you'd be really good at
ham-fistedly shoving in your own things into this kid.
Look, kid, I own this landscaping company, and that is what you're meant to do.
I want to be like the M. Night Shyamalan
of front lawns.
I want to become like an M. Night Shyamalan, but all my twist endings are like just
super mundane,
fucking super lame. He's got the lamest twist ending. Like, you didn't see it coming. It's definitely a twist ending. Did not see it coming. Super lame payoff.
Make it the same.
Very lame payoff.
Every time, everybody's dead.
Yeah, it's a football coach.
Come on, guys.
Yeah.
Get in there.
The most obscure ways to get there. But at the end, it's going to be the same.
Every time it's a dead football coach trying to recruit you for his team in the afterlife.
It's so absurd. It's so absurd.
We're going to get in there. We're going to go inside and outside. We're going to go inside, outside.
Yeah.
Is that a ghost?
Yeah, that's perfect. It ends with like the cheesiest, most stereotypical coach speech in the locker room. He's standing on a stool. It's literally like Rudy. And he just does it
Newt
every
Rockney,
single time.
Every time it's Newt Rockney. The dead guy is Newt Rockney.
Every time he
and you have the same actor playing him every time. So every time you have the same person playing the same exact role in every movie, and you still try to shove it in as a twist ending. Like, bet you didn't see it. I know you thought, all right, he's done it 3 times. He's not going to do it a 4th time. But I did.
No, but make it worse. And so every time is at the end, it's Mora going to the guys, playoffs? Yeah. I just want to win a game. You guys can't even win a game.
Dude, honestly, I'm starting to get pretty sold on this. I kind of love the idea by like the 4th movie. It's literally like, yes! The whole audience is cheering.
Yeah.
They're all standing
Everybody gets behind it like, oh, he's not going to do it again. No way he's doing it again. Like, I know, it's the same actor, but no way he's doing the same exact ending. And he did it again!
It's just the extended Conway Twitty Grand Old Opry.
No way. How could he have made a remake of Romeo and Juliet and ended up with Mora trying to win a playoff? Trying to get in the playoffs.
Basically like... You're like if Andy Kaufman was M. Night Shyamalan.
Like, yeah, pretty much.
Just fucking trolling the shit out of the audience. But
seriously, guys, they're all dead. Let's get back to it. They're all dead.
This is where it all came to. Yeah, I love how your idea became what would be like the cheesiest way to end movies ever. It was literally like Dan became like, we're all just going to troll everything because your shitty idea, your theory is so bad.
It's got merit.
How do we troll the entire King Killer audience? Merit. They're all dead.
It's got merit.
Everybody's dead.
I'm going to do what people with writer's block do to solve their problems.
Well, this is what, I was going to say, this is what we just said. If the end result ends up being lame, maybe give Rothfuss better credit than that.
I feel like he could make them all being dead great.
Yeah. I think it's lame as shit. So, how about that?
Whatever you think, Tim. Whatever you think is gold, huh?
Great comeback. That was fantastic. That comeback, that stumbling
crushed him.
Bullshit.
Fucking smacked him in the face so hard right there.
Well, but you don't know. You don't know.
Tim knows diddly. Tim knows diddly.
Nuh-uh. No, you are.
That's not what I said.
Pretty much.
But yeah, that was it for me. Obviously, that's why we only are covering chapter 11 in this episode, was because it's a monster with a lot to speculate on and a lot to dive into.
Yeah.
And then next week we're redoing 5 and 6 too. So we're gonna redo. What did we cover? Chapters 12 through 15, I believe. Yeah. We finished with. I think we finished with right when Aventhy leaves the group, or right before that. I think we're going through 12 through 15.
Good stuff, man.
Yeah, so that gets us about to Hallowfell. Yeah.
For these short and seemingly uneventful chapters, so much is packed in. What a
No, dude, the crazy honestly, coming from my perspective, we did this. And I kept thinking, and Fitz did the same thing, like, really? Just one chapter? Like, really? And there's so much. I forgot how much there is to unpack and connect, and how much layers over itself.
I had no idea.
I appreciate.
Yeah, and we don't even get to. We won't even get to 15 because I remember on originally on episode 6 we started off with Aventhy leaving, so we're just gonna go through like 12 through 14, but. There's so much to talk about because you have the conversation about the Chandrian with Arladin and Lorien, who's Natalia Lackless, and Aventhy. They talk about that. They talk about where Kavoth could end up. Then we got some good stuff to talk about in episode 5.
And again, this is all like 100 pages.
Yeah,
he's putting this all in quite early in the to be trilogy of books, and they loom so freaking large. I mean, it's giving you massive pieces, and a first read through, don't really know it, you feel it, don't really know it, don't really look so much into it. Maybe there's somebody out there that did on the
you'd
first
have no
read
clue.
through.
There's no way you'd have
There's
no
no
clue.
way. There's no way.
I was going to say, it seems to take a lot away from the experience if you were to do that.
You have to tie things in from book 2 to book 1. You got to jump back and forth. There's just no way. You have to go back through and analyze it.
Unless you start...
like if you go through, like on our podcast, if you go from episode 1 to probably episode 8, you're going to have a very good picture of how intricate the clues are into what could possibly happen in book 3, and how much stuff is just kind of under the surface that you kind of read about, but you don't really, if you don't think about it deeply, you don't understand kind of what some of the information implies for both books, and who these characters might be and what kind of role they could actually be playing. You get through the first 8 chapters. If you had never thought about these things, you're going to have a completely different appreciation for how good a writer Rothfuss is, because when you read them the first time, these books are amazing. When you realize how in depth they go, then you realize he's really fucking amazing. That there's 2 layers to this book.
Yeah, dude, he's like an architect,
and each layer is amazing.
Here, Dan, these books, they insist upon themselves.
Already did that. I was going to say, another option, which seems a bit odd to me, but you could listen to the podcast first, then read the books. You could do that.
Fitz didn't even listen to this podcast.
No, he didn't listen to this.
The joke that you said earlier in this episode.
He didn't even listen to this episode that he's on. Yeah.
What? I was giving... I got to give you credit. I give you credit for it. Go ahead.
It's like didn't even...
Obviously, you want credit.
It was the joke.
That was my joke.
It was so subtle. Like Tim Rothfuss him. He layered it in so subtle that Fitz brought it up like he thought he brought it up organically. He didn't even realize that where it came from.
Anyway.
Well, what's so perfect? What's so perfect too? No.
Yeah,
but what's so perfect about it is when I put it in, it actually made sense. But then when you put it in, fitting your character,
it landed. It's even more so. More so. You gotta think deeper. Out there, it was just hovering. That's why it didn't make sense to you.
Awkward pause. No. It's like it was preambled by awkward pause, and then it was during an awkward pause, and then afterwards awkward pause. What do you
know about the preamble, Tim?
Oh man! All right, good stuff.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think that pretty much covers it.
Yep, that wraps her up.
We'll see you guys next time for episode 5. Be cool.
All right. Peace out.
Yep.